Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. Hopefully your weekend was absolutely outstanding. We are jamming here today. Bunch of documents to unpack together and a new update that the Democrats, after last week getting blown out all over the place in the great redistricting battle that's happening across America, are in a full-blown panic mode. Their words, not ours. They're even sending each other text messages, big, long, F-U-C-K in the rest of the words because they don't really know what to do. In fact, they are now saying that they want to disqualify the entire Supreme Court of Virginia. That's how bad they are down. So we'll get into all of that. We'll turn our attention to what's happening in Alabama because there are some protests, maybe some insurrections happening inside the congressional building. And we've got more news on Trump's election integrity army. Remember, we've been covering this new executive order from Trump that is going to create lists of eligible voters that will be useful for the states to measure their lists against. We also had a bunch of blue states sue to stop this executive order from coming into effect. Well, now the DOJ has responded with a motion to dismiss. It's a big one, 60 pages. We'll see what's inside and hit the highlights on that one. Before we turn our attention to the Biden scramble, we know that this was an auto pen presidency, and there were some questions about his classified documents. And back in 25, I believe it was 25, we heard a bunch of her audio. Remember the special counsel that Garland appointed to go investigate Joe? We got some of that audio out, but now there is more that is not released yet that the Heritage Foundation and many others are digging in on, and the Biden people are scrambling to stop it from coming out. And so we've got the latest updates on all of this and more. It's beautiful to be with you. Thank you for joining our channel. Thank you for subscribing, liking the video, and all the things while you're here. Let's confirm the tubes are connected, and we're coming in loud and clear all across the fruited plains of the internet on this lovely evening, and it looks like things are working. Tremendous news. Sometimes when you take a break, you never know, but it's working. That means we can go ahead and get started. It's panic time, baby, because this is what the story is. Democrats in panic mode. They've been getting blown out in the great gerrymandering battle across America, and they're texting each other, according to Newsmax and others who are reporting on this, words like this right here, censored on your screen here. So if you got little ones in the house, this is what they're sending to each other. F. This is not good for them. They're getting very, very nervous out there, and they've got a new insane strategy to try to reverse course on this, which is what you'd expect crackheads who are power hungry what they would do. And so here's the story on this. Of course, we're going to take a closer look at what that strategy is, courtesy of this fella called Quinn Yeargain, and how they're going to try to maybe boot the entire Supreme Court in Virginia for daring to follow proper procedure in Virginia. And then things are getting wild over there in Alabama. You see, this is one image of a woman who's very unhappy with what's going on over there. Can't wait to see what she has to say about all that coming up. But here's the background explaining what the aftermath of the blowouts last week led to over the weekend. They say Democrats, according to Newsmax, have gone into what party insiders, Democrats themselves, are openly describing as panic mode as Republicans suddenly see a clearer path to holding the House in 2026. A series of court rulings on redistricting that we've been covering here and voting rights has given the GOP a clear path to get plus 10 seats. Now, what only weeks ago appeared to be a Democrat blowout has now been dramatically reversed. Thank you to the Voting Rights Act and the racist districts that are no longer allowed to be drawn. And thanks to Virginia getting caught with their illegalities right in the middle of the process. So a major ruling this past week, of course, invalidated the gerrymandered maps. The developments have rattled Democrats nationwide and energized Republicans. I do feel a little bit of extra energy, who now believe the political map has shifted decisively in their favor. F! Double exclamation. F! One House Democrat texted Axios reporter called Andrew Solender after Virginia's high court struck down the Democrat map. House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, he vowed to Democrats. He came out and he said, we're going to pursue, quote, all options to overturn this shocking decision. While Democrat strategists privately acknowledged the setback could fundamentally alter the control of Congress. Another strategist called Adrian Elrod told reporters, I think we still take back the House, but it's a major setback. We have to just win at the ballot box and we can do it. Well, I don't know. That would require ideas and a good proposal that would be attractive to Americans, which they don't have, which is why they always have to cheat repeatedly to throw people off the ballots, to put them in prison, to try to attach illegal constitutional amendments into their elections, and so on and so forth. Now, Republican optimism comes after a dramatic turnaround that started the redistricting war. Republicans shocked Democrats by flipping 11 seats nationally, including major gains in New York and elsewhere. The strategy has now been unleashed across the nation, and Virginia Democrats tried to scam theirs through. Ron DeSantis is working on it. And what came last week was the voting rights decision. And that's where we're going to go with Alabama, Louisiana. Many other states are now knocking on the door of the Supreme Court, like we see in this filing right here. And they're saying, hey, we need you, Supreme Court, to allow us to get rid of these racist maps, which is why this woman is so upset about it. But here's what they say. Political analysts believe the decision could reshape congressional maps across the South for years to come. Tennessee Republicans have already approved a new map targeting the lone Democrat-held district, and it's only fair. This is what they do in New Hampshire and Vermont and Massachusetts and all of the other New England states where they repeatedly have gotten rid of all Republican representation. There are no congressional seats out there, period. Now they're like, how could you do this to us? What are you talking about? We're finally just playing by your rules. Another Democrat consultant called Trevor, he bluntly summed up growing concerns inside the party. He said rigged maps can overcome a lot. They're not rigged. We're just playing fair with you guys. You guys want to play this game? We'll play. And another Republican is celebrating this. He said, this guy, Jen Kiggins, I think might be female, said, I thank the Supreme Court for its courage in standing up for what is right. Another rep, Richard Hudson, chairman of the RNC, said, this win is yet another sign Republicans have the momentum. We're on offense, baby. And I added that in, and we're going to win. The redistricting reversal is particularly striking because Democrats believe the 2026 environment favored them, talking about Trump and Iran and, all the things. One strategist, though, who's a Democrat, admitted the party may now have to divert huge sums of money simply to remain competitive. And they blew. Those numbers are still coming out in Virginia. I'm seeing some numbers like 65 million right there on Virginia, all for naught. Urinated away like they usually do with money. In this case, going to consultants and get out the vote and all the things, it was all illegal. Republicans credit much of the strategy to Trump political advisors who pushed for aggressive mid-decade redraws to play back with the Democrats. Chris LaCivita and others. Another Democrat said Democrats may retaliate in blue states. Yeah, but they've already done that. They're already gerrymandered to hell already. Look at the New England states and elsewhere. So for now, Newsmax reports it appears Republicans are holding the upper hand, but of course, time will tell. And their plan of attack to reverse all of this, reported over here by the New York Times, and we have the actual strategy session that came over from this guy called Quinn, is to get rid of the Supreme Court in Virginia. Okay, this is what we talk about all the time. They just cheat and manipulate the rules. They can't just say, up, you got us. We tried to attach an amendment illegally outside of Virginia law. No one's above the law, not even the Democrats in Virginia. None of that. No. Their plan, like meth addicts, is to come out and try to just knife all the Supreme Court justices, all of them on the Supreme Court. It's crazy. So now they're struggling to respond, according to the Times, to a major setback. Some party leaders are discussing audacious, says the Times, and a possibly far-fetched idea for trying to restore the map. But they don't have a clear plan. No indication they're actually thinking this through. During private discussions over the weekend on Saturday that included House leaders from Virginia and Hakeem Jeffries from New York, lawmakers vented anger at their defeat thanks to the Virginia Supreme Court 4-3 decision, and a glorious day indeed. Spoke about a collective determination to flip 2 or 3 Republican seats under the existing map, and discussed a bank shot proposal to redraw the congressional lines anyway, according to 3 people who were in on the call and 2 others who were briefed on it. Now, they did not land on a specific course of action, but Jeffries and other members of Congress agreed to consult with their lawyers, probably on the phone with Norm Eisen and Mark Elias as we speak, about the most prudent way to proceed. And one person spoke on condition of anonymity to pass this all off to the Times. Now, the conversation reflected desperation and fury that have gripped the party after their map got struck down. The most dramatic idea they discussed, this is where it gets crazy, which would involve an unusual gambit to replace the entire state Supreme Court, all of them, with the goal of reinstating their map, drew mixed reactions. Like, well, that's one idea. Okay. So nuke the whole court. Okay. All right. I like it. Drew mixed reactions on the call, said the people, and it was not clear that it would even be viable or even palatable to the CIA Governor Abigail or Democrats in the Virginia Assembly. After Democrats had fought, there's been a battle back and forth, Republicans looking like they have a clear upper hand. Any plans to enact a new map for this year's midterms would require action in the next few days. And they're also appealing this to the Supreme Court. I have that queued up as well. Scott Surreville, the majority leader of the Virginia Senate, declined to comment on Saturday. Don Scott, the Speaker of the House, said in an interview that he hasn't spoken to Jeffries or about the multi-step proposal that they're all plotting behind the scenes. One key plan would be having Democrats in Richmond, in Virginia, lower the mandatory retirement age for the state Supreme Court, okay? An idea that began circulating after a column published this version. Now, here's what the column said. So this guy over here, Quinn Yergin, posted this in the run-up to the weekend, and this is over at the Down Ballot, and this is the one that's capturing a lot of attention today, saying Virginia Democrats are looking for a way to overturn this thing. He says, let's go to the Constitution. It says that the legislature, the General Assembly, they may provide a mandatory retirement age for the justices. After they reach a certain age, Constitution says just kick them out. Current law says the age is 73, which is the new 43. Any member who attains 73 years of age shall be retired 20 days after the convening of the next regular session, following his 73rd birthday. But he says this guy's strategy, this guy concocted this whole thing. They're so desperate. They're like, that sounds great. We'll do it. Saying that that age is set by Virginia lawmakers. All Virginia needs to do is simply lower it. Says make it 54, which is crazy. That's so young. You don't even become a good judge until you're 54, right? I mean, it takes forever to like get good up until that level. That's like a baby, by the way. By Supreme Court standards, that's like a baby. 54, like, oh, perfect. You're going to put them on the Supreme Court and you're going to get a good 40 years out of them, hopefully, maybe 30. And you just kind of, put them on there. But that is young. So that's the age of the youngest justice, Stephen McCullough. So I guess they'll reappoint a bunch of like 20-year-olds, like fresh out of law school. Sure, I'll be on the Supreme Court, and make it take effect immediately. Virginia already uses a similar threshold for public employees. Members of the system with 5 years of service can retire at age 55. The Virginia Constitution ordinarily requires a little bit of time for the laws to come into effect. However, appropriations bills aren't subject to these restrictions, and they haven't passed their budget. So we could get it all done now. Then after the bill is approved, he says, this guy, the entire court would retire, all thrown out. A new court would then be appointed that could rehear the case, reverse it, and then have the opportunity to issue a different ruling. Like, these people are nuts. They tried to throw Trump off the ballot. They said, no, he's an insurrectionist under the 14th Amendment. Remember that? And he should be in jail. And then they extended the statute of limitations in New York so that crazy lady E. Jean Carroll could then file a civil complaint against him and then use that to say he's an R. So Democrats might prefer other solutions, he says, but if they want to see the will of the voters respected, then there are virtually no other options. So they're out of luck. And none with as good of chance of success as this one, which doesn't seem like there's a lot of room for success on that. But we were discussing this, and we talked about the idea that 1.3 million voters were disenfranchised because they didn't even have an opportunity to vote on this, which is part of the reason why the Supreme Court of Virginia reversed it in the first place. They said, oh, you disenfranchised all the people who voted on the amendment. No, you didn't give a proper and fair election. In fact, a huge portion, according to the Virginia Supreme Court, 1.3 million people never even got the opportunity to make their voices heard. So they did the disenfranchising, and probably for a good reason, because if they would have included all those people in this entire process, probably would not have gotten this far, because they're cheaters. So the Times says Spanberger would have to sign off on this. I mean, why wouldn't she? She has not been briefed on the proposal, said her people. The first step would be to invoke a January ruling, and Democrats would aim to invalidate earlier constitutional amendments, and there's other plans. Ensuring this plan would be to lower the mandatory age. New York Times, again, taking his idea and running with it. This is how desperate they are. 75 to 54. In states like Arizona and others, they've expanded the Supreme Courts to make them more conservative, but this would get rid of all the judges. It'd be like, you know, the Red Wedding in that TV show. Like, everybody's just dead. You're all dead now. Former Representatives James P. Moran, Democrat of Virginia, said a move to stack the Supreme Court this way would be a bridge too far, could backfire on his party. He said that he understood that many Democrats felt their party needs to fight back, but we do have to keep our credibility. We have to do things that pass the legitimacy test. Yeah. Everyone has got to have a strong stomach, someone said. This is a complete disaster waiting to happen if everybody's timid. He was on the call. We have Republican states ignoring their constitutions and interrupting early voting and ignoring the Supreme Court altogether. And so we know we have to explore every single option to move forward. They're freaked out. On Friday, other legislators in Virginia signaled that they had planned to appeal to the Supreme Court. They've now done that. In an interview on Friday before the Saturday meeting, once again, Hakeem says it's all hands on deck. It's unprecedented in American history that an actual election, see, this is the scam, an actual election has been overturned by a handful of unelected judges. Give us a break. And this is this whole point. They said in Virginia, the Virginia Attorney General and their hired lawyers said, you can't, Supreme Court, you can't rule on this before the election. You have to wait until after the election is over. Then once the election is over and they barely win, by disenfranchising the people who were involved earlier in the process, they say, you can't reverse an election. Got it. So we can't make a decision before it hits the election, and we can't make a decision until after it hits the election. Isn't that just great? So no matter what you do, you win. That's your game. Yeah, that's our game. Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, you're a fascist and you don't believe in fairness. So that's their strategy. Now, they have taken this up to the Supreme Court and submitted this one just this afternoon, fresh out of the oven. Here's just the highlight of their emergency application. It's Jay Jones. Hopefully he doesn't shoot anybody in the head. We've got Greyhawk Law, Matthew Seligman, Tillman Breckenridge, Office of the Attorney General, and others. And they submitted this one into SCOTUS. We'll see what SCOTUS does with it, because SCOTUS, of course, can just say, what are you coming to us for? This is a state issue. This is about the state constitution, state procedure, state definitions of election law. Has nothing to do with federal election law at all. So we're not going to take it because it's not our jurisdiction. So good luck and bye-bye. But they're going to make this appear as though it's a massive federal issue, as you can see. They say a stay is warranted because the Supreme Court of Virginia is deeply mistaken on two critical issues of federal law, which weren't even a part of the conversation. The Virginians did try to incorporate, they would say, well, federal election day means one day versus a general election, right? These were two terms of arts that we fought about forever. A general election, the court said, means the entire election. When people start casting their ballots, they're participating in the general election. versus they would say, no, that actually means election day, which is the conclusion day of the general election. So they say this decision violates federal law. That's why you have jurisdiction. So now it's a federal issue. It wasn't before. First, otherwise, why didn't they sue? Or why wasn't this even in federal court? It wasn't. It was in state court. First, it predicated its interpretation on a grave misreading of federal law, which fixes a single day for the election, where a state court now is saying our decision is interwoven with federal law. So please help us, Supreme Court. You're our only hope. And by rejecting our constitution of an election, how we define it, for its own meaning, they transgressed the ordinary bounds of judicial review. That's why you have to hear our case. And there's a reasonable probability that you're going to grant cert and you're going to reverse this. So please hear us, John Roberts and the Supreme Court of the United States. We need your help because we're panicking. And if you don't help us, we might just eliminate the entire Supreme Court of Virginia like crackheads. So all that's happening. And Jen Kiggins is a Virginia representative who is over in the 2nd Congressional District. And she said, you know, I joined Newsmax this morning to discuss the latest ploy by Virginia Democrats, as usual, to lie, cheat, and steal their way into gerrymandering Virginia. They are even considering firing the entire court to get their way. Shame on them, Elaine Luria and Abigail Spanberger, for supporting this unconstitutional power grab. And here's what she had to say about this afternoon.
So new reports say that some desperate Democrats held a call where the most dramatic idea they discussed involved an unusual gambit to replace the entire state Supreme Court. Obviously, Congresswoman, this is not going to happen. But what do you make of the court's decision on Friday? Really a big win for the GOP.
It was a great win, but it was a victory for the rule of law, and it was a victory for fairness and a victory for fair representation for Virginians. But it is an egregious overreach of power what the Democrats are proposing. I mean, they are all stirred up and don't know which direction to go. So I really hope Virginians are watching what they're trying to do. They weren't happy with the Supreme Court ruling. So what are the Democrats trying to do? They're trying to fire the Supreme Court and lower the mandatory retirement age so that every single justice is replaced. You don't do that. You know, respecting this rule of law and the Constitution, that's a cornerstone of what makes the Commonwealth and our country great. So it is so frustrating to watch what the Democrats are bringing to the table, to lie, cheat, and steal. They can't beat us at the ballot box, so they're trying all their different shady tactics.
Exactly right. And they don't even have any alternatives because they've been cheating the entire process, right? The entire amendment process, according to the Supreme Court, was a cheat. It was a scam. They didn't follow proper procedure. And just think about what they'll do at the national level should they win. We have the Republicans are like, well, I don't want to eliminate the filibuster because history and tradition. You're like, okay. The Democrats are going to come in and they are going to lower your retirement age, John Thune and Tom Tillis and the rest of them. And you're all going to get thrown on your butts. And it's going to be a big problem for you unless you actually play like they play. These people are like meth addicts, and you guys are playing tiddlywinks and Farkle. And it doesn't work that way. So what is happening just a little bit further south over in Alabama? Well, they're having similar reactions to this. The panic mode is not just limited to Virginia and Hakeem Jeffries. We see that Alabama has now gone up to the Supreme Court, and they have a very interesting filing. I'm learning a lot about Alabama, having prepared and read through some of that we'll take a look at. But here's what's going on now. Now that Alabama is saying we're going to redistrict too, here's what's going on there in Alabama.
Troopers removed protesters from the State House during debate over redistricting legislation. The commotion forced a brief recess. Debate soon resumed after.
This is
a brief recess. To me, that sounds like an insurrection. You know, that was interference and obstruction of proceedings. Where's the FBI?
Not about party for me. It's about fair representation.
On the House floor, Mobile Representatives Barbara Drummond and bill sponsor Chris Pringle clashed over the proposal. Pringle noted the legislation only takes effect if a federal injunction is lifted.
When do you expect the courts to rule on your appeal?
The Attorney General filed a motion yesterday asking for an emergency declaration on the appeal, and it could come any day.
Define what's the emergency? Is the house on fire?
Conservative column.
You have racist maps that are being drawn illegally in violation of the Constitution. So yeah, the House is on fire. We're tired of rigged elections in America. So that's why we're acting with haste.
Quinn Hillier criticized the special session, calling it premature.
I think this whole charade, or this whole exercise, is a charade that will be a waste of time and a waste of a lot of emotion.
Hillier says he doesn't believe Alabama will succeed in court. He argues the state's legal situation is different from Louisiana and that the Supreme Court did not overturn the ruling requiring Alabama to use a court-drawn map. That map shifted much of Mobile out of District 1 and into District 2.
This whole thing is a rush to respond for partisan advantage that's getting way ahead of what the courts have told Alabama it can do.
First of all, partisanship is completely allowed. That was what the Supreme Court said in Louisiana versus Calais. You know what is not allowed? Racist maps where you say certain groups of people of a certain color or ethnicity are entitled to certain representation and benefits that other people are not. That was the decision. And so he does sound a little bit emotional. But here's what Alabama sent in. The case, of course, has been going on for quite some time. It's called Wes Allen, Alabama Secretary of State versus Evan Milligan, now on the docket of the Supreme Court and making its way over to conference, being distributed for 5/14/2026. So we should get a ruling on this pretty quickly. But here are the arguments that were made. And it is an emergency application for a stay. We have elections coming up, so we need action with haste. And here's what they asked the Supreme Court. They said, all right, listen, judges, you know, the lower level district court in Alabama, they ordered our state to use a race-based map that admittedly does not achieve all the political goals of the legislature, okay? So the legislature says you can draw this map and there are partisan factors that can go into that analysis and you're allowed to do that. Can't be racist, but if there's partisanship in there, that's the whole point of gerrymandering and drawing the maps. Someone's going to draw the map and someone's going to have a bias one way or the other, so we allow it. It's politics. Now that order, the judge said, sorry, you can't do politics. You have to do a racist map. So they say, not anymore, we don't. That order segregated more than 1 million Alabamans into different districts because of their race. Completely irreconcilable with Louisiana versus Calais. Now, for that reason and others, Alabama is going to win. We're asking you to vacate these things. And so that we have an opportunity to actually use a good map. The court is not scheduled to hear anything. We need a stay this week, immediately. Now, after these other cases called Milligan versus Allen back in 23, Alabama enacted a new redistricting plan rather than further litigate this. The court upheld the injunction because it split one community of interest. It's called the Black Belt. We're going to learn more about that, while keeping together another, the Gulf Coast. The new plan prioritized the Gulf Coast, the Black Belt, and Wiregrass. And after a full trial, there was no dispute that adding a second majority-minority district would require cracking this district into 2 districts, separating Mobile's black voters from Mobile's white voters to join them with black voters elsewhere. Okay, it's segregation here. Blacks over here, whites over here. What? Yeah, we're not racist. This is about democracy. So get to the back of the bus. Now, for 50 years, the state has recognized the Gulf Coast as a community of interest that should be represented with one voice. The district court forced the state to sacrifice that goal. But then we got Calais. And Alabama is just like Louisiana. And they should end up the same way. We should run this based on policy goals, not on race. But Louisiana, in their SB 5, they had to use racism. And the same thing's happening here. So Alabama wants the same opportunity. We're at the Supreme Court. Now, this week, the Alabama legislature held a special session to consider legislation for the election in districts whose boundaries were altered by the previous racism. They say, too late, sorry, those maps are already on the books, nothing you can do about that. But they say it's illegal. And the Supreme Court just gave us this ruling, so it's not too late. So they would want us to have a map that was unconstitutional. Nothing in the law requires that. And Americans and Alabamans deserve a republic free of racial sorting right now, okay? Not next election, not in the future at all. Now, there were a bunch of decisions that came down below, and here's some background on this black belt. In 2021, there was a map that was stopped by the courts. It's called the Black Belt. It's a region in Alabama named for its fertile black soil. Like the dirt. Fertile black soil. Or, as they put it, it's the heart of the case. The district court took issue with how the plan split 18 black belt counties because it was possible to split the black belt less. After this court affirmed it, rather than proceeding to a trial, there was a new map. So then they set new districts and they said, let's keep these things together. But nonetheless, they sued. They moved to stop this. This time, the heart of their case was whether or not Alabama could keep this area together. They said, you can't. You have to split that up so we can get more districts and combine it with black voters in the black belt. Black voters are in the black belt to form a second majority black district. All right. So basically cracking the state, splitting it up so they get another district literally based on race. The legislature had good reasons to avoid segregating Mobile's white and black voters. The Alabama AG warned the legislature that placing the race of voters ahead of regular redistricting is racist. It's an equal protection clause problem. But they had it happen anyways. The district court enjoined the plan. Congressional elections proceeded on the court-drawn map. Then they fully litigated it. After trial, they permanently enjoined the use of the 2023 plan, saying that their plan to create the multiple districts were much better by placing more black belt counties in the majority black districts. So this shifted the goalposts, and there were racial effects all through and through. But in 2025, then, the question was whether Alabama's plan flunked for failing to draw Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, for failing to draw black voters from the black belt and black voters from elsewhere into a second racist district. With this race-based rubric, the court held that it requires an alternative map, right? The prior interpretation of this Section 2 before the Supreme Court came down said, yeah, race predominates. So they had a bad map. Then the court said Alabama was violating the Constitution because in order to not be racist, you have to draw, before the Supreme Court acted, you had to draw racist maps. So all of that history is fleshed out for us. And now we get to their main argument. They say, Supreme Court, you're going to do the same thing that you did in Louisiana. Give us this option here. You should vacate the lower court, which required us to do that. Alabama said that they had not given us proper maps. And the district court agreed with the state that no alternative could achieve the political goals of the legislature. Okay, this is where it gets real bad because they're saying, yeah, like you have these buckets of political interests over here, but we're going to say that race overrides your political interests. And there's nothing else that they could have done to achieve their political interests. So all of this going up to SCOTUS, and let's see what else they're saying here. The 2023 plan was inconsistent with the other plans. And you get the gist of it. It's going to be the same thing. They say race was used to draw the new maps. Alabama has always objected to this. Now the Supreme Court said no more racist maps allowed. If the state had configured its districts to achieve a specific black voting age population, it would have been a racist map. Indeed, the only reason to extract part of Mobile, which was previously called Black Mobile, is to connect it with black populations hundreds of miles away, drawing squiggly lines, all of it becoming a racial gerrymander. And so they're saying, Supreme Court, you have to come and step in here. Their lower level holding cannot stand. Their logic here is essentially the same in Louisiana, and Calais undermines their holding. Same allegation. They were drawing it based on race. We're drawing it based on partisanship and politics. And they betrayed a presumption of good faith and misinterpreted the Constitution and Section 2. So therefore, since the interpretation has been revised and now the proper revisions are under effect, the state will face irreparable harm if you don't do this. One, they disable the state from conducting elections using a lawful plan, and they're not going to be harmed. They're entitled to vote. Whatever opportunity results from the application of this is valid. This is from the Calais opinion, and the state would be in the public interest because we don't want racist maps. Now, to be sure, Alabama has elections fast approaching, but the legislature is currently addressing whether election deadlines could be shifted to conduct special elections under the 2023 plan if the injunction is lifted. If Alabamans have an election free of racially sorted congressional districts, they should have the opportunity. If they can do it, we should do it. It's not too late to act, though they said to the district court that the Purcell principle, which says you can't make any sudden changes or sudden moves as you get closer to an election because you don't want to confuse the voters and make it more difficult to change elections and change ballots and change precincts and all the things. But Kavanaugh said, it is one thing for state legislatures to alter their own elections in the late innings and bear responsibility for that. If the state wants to change it, the state can change it. But if the federal courts want to come in and change it, that's different. So this case is the opposite of that. This is the legislature. So we're now asking this court to enter a stay of the injunctions pending this appeal so that we can now consider our new maps that are no longer racist submitted to the Supreme Court by Alabama. And here is updates on exactly what's going on here from an Alabama news company called WBRC. And this reporter had just spoken with the attorney general out there in Alabama. And here's the latest on where this stands.
And it's been a fast-moving fight over the redistricting cases. Now lawmakers and civil rights attorneys are waiting on the Supreme Court's ruling over the state's congressional maps. Your reporter Abby Heyman joins us live after talking to AG Steve Marshall this afternoon. So Abby, what is the latest in this?
Yeah, Lauren, Attorney General Steve Marshall is asking the Supreme Court to act by May 14th. That's just 5 days before Alabama's primaries. Now, this is all coming after a lower federal court rejected an emergency motion. After a week of emergency motions and a special session in Montgomery, Alabama's redistricting fight landing at the nation's highest court.
Our request for the Supreme Court is for them to vacate the order of the three-judge panel to be able to allow Alabama to be able to proceed with pushing back the primary dates, and then to allow for the legislature to be able to exercise their authority with regard to a map for our congressional members.
Friday, a federal court denied Marshall and Secretary of State Wes Allen's emergency motion, saying they lacked jurisdiction. Hours later, Marshall filed directly with the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who handles emergency requests from Alabama.
Justice Thomas has set a 5 o'clock deadline on Monday for the plaintiffs to be able to file their responsive briefs, and it's our hope that we get a very timely order from the Supreme Court outlining what's our next steps.
Thomas does have the authority to act alone, but is waiting to hear from both sides first. UW Clement is one of the plaintiff's lawyers in the redistricting cases. He tells us their team is working on that response this weekend, but still doubts the High Court will rule in time for primary elections.
I seriously doubt that the Supreme Court is going to grant the motion to expedite the appeal in this case.
The special session that wrapped up Friday passed 2 bills creating a framework for special primary elections if the court does lift the injunctions. But Democratic lawmakers say the uncertainty is already causing problems.
The concern right now is the confusion that it would create among not only the voters, but also officials who are responsible for the elections.
Republicans say the session accomplished exactly what it set out to do, prepare the state for every possible outcome.
There's no reason to be uneasy. Obviously, right now, there's no change in what's going to take place on May 19th. However, if we're able to get that relief, we'll be able to fully educate voters on what's next.
For now, nothing changes. Alabama's primaries will go on May 19th with the current court-ordered maps. Your reporter live in Birmingham, Abby Heyman, WBRC 6 News. On your.
All right, so that's the latest over there. And I don't know if they got their response in. Let's do a refresh over here. Don't see anything on the docket. So It is now past 5 Eastern time in DC. So it has now been distributed for conference on 5/14, and we'll see what Judge Thomas does on this one. But the Democrats are panicking everywhere. And it's not that we want to disenfranchise anybody. We just don't want to have racist, gerrymandered maps that are cobbling together a political advantage using the exploitation of race. They just say, oh, you have to give us special advantages that happen to benefit the Democratic Party, and they're riding on the backs of a race, essentially, to accomplish that. Not anymore. Make your arguments to the voting population, and then people can vote accordingly. That's what Louisiana versus Calais said. And so, as we saw, they're unhappy. This woman, not happy. And the Democrats, of course, in panic mode, sending each other text messages now in the aftermath of the ruling that look just like that right there. So, of course, happy to see it. And we'll be here to continue to cover this one. We'll see what SCOTUS says very soon, and we'll keep our eye on this one. Now, we're not done yet. We've got a stern warning from the president. Trump issues a stern warning to the election fraudsters. We are going to have an election integrity army deployed throughout America. And this comes on the back of the battle over the executive order on election integrity, which is now facing a motion to dismiss lawsuit filed by the DOJ against the League of Women Voters out in Massachusetts and the state of California, who both sued to try to stop the executive order from coming into fruition. This, of course, is about the voter lists and about the USPS, the Postal Service, which is explaining that they're not going to be complicit in transmitting fraudulent ballots. Why should they? They're not co-conspirators in the Democrats' fraud scheme. So Trump posted this. He said, all right, Palestinian Chuck Schumer, which I'm sure he's happy about that name, is hiring Eric Holder. Remember him? Obama's wingman. And they say, how dare Trump politicize the DOJ? Eric Holder said that. Famous for handing guns to Mexican cartels under Obama, Barack Hussein Obama's administration, as part of a Democrat-led election integrity group. And they don't give a crap about election integrity, okay? You put these things on a spectrum. Election integrity is on one side of the equation, which means you want the election to have integrity. You want people voting who should be voting. Things that impute integrity means checking ID, day of election, no mail-in ballots, no ballot harvesting, no drop boxes, none of those things. On the other side of the equation, on the other end of the spectrum, is voter enfranchisement. They're necessarily at odds with each other. The more voter enfranchisement you have, the less integrity you have. The more integrity you have, the less people are going to be able to vote because they don't have their ID. They are not qualified to vote, and so on and so forth. So as always, they repurpose the name Election Integrity Group when they have no integrity. They're the Democratic Party. That will no doubt try to suppress Republican voters and interfere in our elections. And furthermore, Mark Elias, a terrible lawyer with a horrible track record, is also involved. This is the same disgusting individual, and he is disgusting. We've seen many pictures of him. I almost put him on the thumbnail today, but he was too disgusting for us. Who was responsible for the fake Russia dossier from a foreign nation. This is the Hillary Clinton PP tape scandal with the Steele dossier. He was Hillary Clinton's campaign lawyer back then. Sent Michael Sussman over there to meet with James Baker of the FBI, and then tried to shill this whole scam, all of it completely fake, to rig another election. I know we're surprised. From a foreign nation to meddle in 16, which Trump won in historic fashion. Glorious day. The Democrats are totally unhinged, and we will not allow them to threaten the integrity, real integrity, of our elections. Trump says, during my historic election in 2024, when I won every single swing state and decisively won both the electoral and the popular vote by wide margins, the Republicans had an election integrity army in every single state to preserve the sanctity of each legal vote. We will be doing the same again in 2026. but it will be much bigger and stronger. All Americans should have their voices be heard by casting a vote. Be assured, this election will be fair. President Donald J. Trump. And the Democrats all over YouTube and all over the internet, all over MSNBC and elsewhere, they're saying Trump's going to unleash an election army to interfere with our elections, which is rich because this is the same party that unleashed prosecutors to try to put him in jail 4 times, extended the statute of limitations to prosecute him in civil court, with a crazy lady testifying about something that happened 30 years ago, and so on and so forth, raiding his house and going through Melania's underwear drawers before trying to throw him off the ballot. But the president, of course, has issued a major executive order, and now the DOJ is responding, saying we're filing to dismiss the lawsuit brought by all the blue states, and this comes after the blue states have gobbled together to sue, and the red states were not allowed to intervene. This is a case in front of Judge Indira Talwani. So all the blue states got to come together and dogpile, but the red states were not allowed. They were kicked out. Now the red states are appealing this, the U.S. Court of Appeals number going up, notice of appeal, Oklahoma, Indiana, Kansas, South Dakota, and more. So you can see just how rigged this whole thing is. But Trump, of course, issued the executive order, and now the Postal Service is trying to figure out how to comply with this, saying, CNN, garbage, garbage. Gabe Cohen and Jeremy Erb, garbage. Trump saying that casting votes by mail is a fraud magnet. It is true. It's not baseless at all. So the order, they say, has raised alarms in the Postal Service. They don't know what they should do. And the reason for this is because they haven't figured out what the exact policies are in the executive branch, as we'll see. Lawsuits are piling their way up. U.S. Postal Service is trying to comply, and they're very nervous about this. Background on the order, there's really 2 main components to this. One, the Trump order would say the federal government will build their own lists. So the states don't want to give up the lists. Why? Because the lists are how you commit the fraud. You can have 30,000 people on there that have moved, and another 30,000 people who are dead, and another 30,000 duplicate voters, and another 30,000 with 1,900 birth dates, and the list goes on and on. The grift is in the gray area. It's a big black box, a big smorgasbord of God knows what's happening. You've got all of these mail-in ballots in many of these blue states just being force-fed down everyone's throats, sent out whether you want it or not, automatic registration, ballots zip-zapping all over the country. So Trump said, well, we'll just make our own list. And since the U.S. Postal Service is part of the executive branch and there's a federal oversight over that, we're not shipping your scam fraudulent ballots. So the states will make their own lists, but the federal government will make their list as well. And you can compare and contrast those lists. And the red states wanted those lists because they said, that's like half the job. Yeah, send us the list, federal government, and we'll, of course, comply with that. But the judge said, you can't be a part of this lawsuit because you're too red. So we've got 2 things happening. That is what's happening on both accounts. Voting rights lawyers are saying this is going to make the whole entity an election enforcement arm. Why should the U.S. Postal Service facilitate financial fraud or mortgage fraud or election fraud or any other types of fraud? They shouldn't. They actually don't. Say, oh, you're sending drugs through the mail? You're going to have an FBI agent show up there with a Postal Service inspector upon receipt. Same thing with these fraudulent ballots. So the Democrats are suing, and they're not happy about this at all. And so this lawsuit has now made its way over to Massachusetts, of course, because that court is just ridiculous. We know Judge Zenas and others, she's from Maryland, but the other one, Murphy, is from there. But here's what we got now from the DOJ. They dropped a burner, okay? It is a big one. It's 60 pages. We'll hit the highlights and go through it quickly. But they're responding to 2 lawsuits. So the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, right? These are the same nonprofits that we see popping up all over the place. In fact, I think they also popped up in the state of Utah when they were suing the League of Women Voters of Utah in order to redistrict in front of the Utah Supreme Court when that judge, Diana Hagan, was texting one of the lawyers for one of the League of Women Voters inappropriately, and then she just resigned out of that case as well. Got a segment on that coming out later. But state of California also sued along with the other blues. The Reds were not allowed to come in as co-defendants or to intervene. And so now the DOJ says, this is our motion to dismiss your lawsuits and to respond to their motion for a preliminary injunction to stop this from going into effect, stop the lists from being created, stop the Postal Service from checking on the ballots, and more. And for summary judgment. So it's a bunch of issues combined into one, but we'll hit the highlights on it. And it is a little bit repetitive, so we'll fast forward through some of it. But here's, as you can see, what they dropped. And they start with this opening to the judge. They say, all right, Judge, President Trump signed an executive order called 14399. This is an intra-branch directive, okay? It's within the executive branch. It's not Trump going over into the legislative branch. It's not Trump telling the judges what to do. Executive branch executes the law. And the Postal Service is under that branch. So it's policy development inside our own house, saying all it is from the president to his subordinates. And it changes nothing about the administration of any election anywhere. States are all free to run their elections as they will. This litigation, though, nonetheless began 2 days later. So as soon as the order comes out, boom, they sue. So as a result of the blues and their rush to the courthouse, these two suits were each filed well before we even did anything. We haven't even taken any steps to implement anything before the agency defendants even knew how they might implement this or on what timeline. So they're just suing because they're like spring loaded, like a jack in the box. Trump does something, lawsuit. So even to this day, none of the possible future agency actions contemplated have even been finalized, and some have not even started yet. Now, as one particularly obvious example, although it is black letter administrative law that courts do not have the authority to review proposed agency rules, okay, you can't intervene in all of this proposal stuff. Like once it hits the books, then you can come out and get involved in it. Otherwise, we're just talking about things. And that's from Kavanaugh. The core of this lawsuit is trying to stop that. They're trying to short circuit what we're doing with the Postal Service, and not just before a final rule has been published, but before it's even been proposed. That's not how this works. Whatever concerns they have about a possible action that may be taken, right now, there is nothing to litigate. They're asking for an injunction. There's nothing to enjoin. Both as a practical matter and as a doctrinal matter, the government cannot defend, and this court, you, Judge, cannot opine on the validity of agency action that does not exist and the critical parameters of which have not even been decided yet. Now, to be clear, all agree that U.S. citizens may vote by mail when permitted by state and federal law, and all agree that non-citizens may not vote in federal elections by mail or otherwise. Nobody has an interest in widespread, haphazard, or unlawful disenfranchisement of eligible citizens who want to vote. But that's not what this executive order does. And that's certainly not how we're going to implement it. So this court need not and should not, by the way, adopt the most pessimistic interpretation of how this order could be interpreted as they do. After all, further clarity may be coming soon and may result in different or fewer, narrower questions to even litigate than the ones that they filed saying election is over in America. Now, of course, if any or all plaintiffs, the Blues or the League of Women Voters, if they and their fears turn out to be real and some agency takes some discrete action that causes some concrete injury or is going to imminently cause an injury, then they can sue. But right now, this is not ripe and they have no standing to bring the claim. So therefore, all of this stuff should be denied. These premature lawsuits should be dismissed without prejudice in their entirety and get rid of them. A little more background here. Of course, we know Executive Order 14399. We covered it extensively here previously. What they have are the state citizenship lists. Homeland and others compile and send a list of eligible voters All you got to do, you're the federal government, you know everything. Go through the Social Security records, go through the save data, go through other databases, assemble the list, and send it over to the states. It's called a state citizenship list. Send it out by a certain time, and then you know who is a citizen and who is not. That's point one. Now, point two is about the USPS. The order directs the Postal Service to initiate proposed rulemaking with regard to mail-in balloting and to develop procedures for individuals to be enrolled on state-specific mail-in and absentee lists. Now, those lists would be distinct from the other lists that we talked about in the prior section. It says just begin proposed rulemaking. The order further states any final rule needs to be issued by a certain period of time, and it doesn't say anything about whether this stuff should be the final rule, and no notice of proposed rulemaking has even been issued yet. And third, the order also says, the Attorney General, now acting Todd Blanche, shall take steps to address noncompliance with federal law. If there's violations of election law, then you can do things, and says also that the states should preserve their records for a period of 5 years and more. Now, all of course, as soon as the order was issued on March 31st, 2 days later, the guys behind the League of Women Voters, which are nonprofits all across America, many states have them, they sued. Then the next day, Californians, they sued and amended their complaints. We wanted to transfer the cases to DC. Judge said no. The states that wanted to intervene, the red states, said, well, we actually want these lists. The blue states may not want the list, but we do. It's going to help us. We'd love to comply. Judge said, no, you can't either. So the court consolidated the cases. Then they filed a motion for summary judgment. And here we are now. They say from the DOJ under acting Todd Blanche, these suits, Judge, should be dismissed without prejudice in their entirety. This case has no standing and it is not ripe. They fail to say that anything has actually happened yet. They can sue once there's final agency action, but there isn't. Before any agency has even implemented this, they face no actual harm. They cannot succeed on this because they need to. And there is no public interest in stopping our deliberations. Our job is to deliberate. We have internal deliberation powers. And so all of this is speculative and should not be entertained at all. First of all, they lack standing. No injury in fact. They have to have an injury, concrete, particularized, actual, or imminent, and they don't. This is an internal directive, and it doesn't change anything about how any elections occur in any states. It doesn't require anyone outside the government, and certainly not these states, to do anything at all. These are intra-governmental. They're inside the executive branch. It's just how about we do things. And so ultimately, their real concern is not with the executive order standing alone. They fear the possible creation of a list and a possible role of the Postal Service being involved in checking the list and checking it twice to find out who's naughty or nice and legal. But currently, any injury based on possible future actions is far too speculative. We're in a rulemaking posture right now. These are not actually even on the books yet. So they make a complaint, but there is no fatal causation. There is no causation which is fatal to their claim. They can't point to any actual harm based on our deliberations that are taking place inside the branch. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't sue later. As we actually and eventually implement the order, then of course they can come on back. They might have an injury at that time, but they don't right now. And so no standing, no one's requiring them to do anything. And the reason being is they are not ripe. These claims are just little seedlings in the ground. They're not ripe yet, like a big, beautiful fruit. Plaintiffs claim independently they failed also because they're not ripe. Courts can't, and this is like we're having flashbacks to 2020 when Trump was suing. Oh, sorry, latches. You should have sued before the election. Oh, sorry. Mootness. Now you can't sue. Oops, sorry. Claim's not ripe yet because you sued too soon. Never ending. So same type of thing happening here. It's nice to see them throw it back the other way. Without waiting for this to be implemented, however, a group of plaintiffs sued immediately. They said that even the order itself was chilling aliens and their families for responding to the census, thereby degrading the quality of the census. In another case, Supreme Court vacated a lot of that. Same thing's happening here. Section 3 requires multiple discrete implementation steps. None of that has happened yet. The decision-making process should run its course. Sotomayor brought that up in another case. Same logic applies here. If somebody takes final action to implement anything, then they can sue, but not right now. We're still just talking about this. We may not even do it. The litigation should thus be dismissed as unripe without prejudice in its entirety. Now, they also, again, under the APA, we're familiar with this, not alleging any final agency action. All it is contemplation at the moment. And they even say in the order, we're complying with law. So to the extent feasible, consistent with the law, this is what we're doing. So they're saying we're invoking something new that's going to be illegal. The order itself says specifically, comply with the law. So it's not even a possibility that their concerns are valid. The president himself is plainly aware further steps will be necessary before we implement anything. We're going to have infrastructure that needs to be erected. State citizenship lists are still hypothetical and inchoate. And their concern is that the state citizenship lists will be incomplete due to the gaps and limitations that the feds have. But the order does not resolve the question of what databases will be used to create these lists. That decision goes to the agency officials. It just makes suggestions. And USCIS has not made any recommendations or final decisions yet. So although they might have concerns about how they're created, that's why we're having deliberations about them. We are working through the issues right now. So they're suing about hypotheticals that are not even ripe yet. And similar arguments with criminal enforcement priorities and more. So there's no viable cause of action. You can see a lot of technical stuff here. And they're not pointing to any violations of any laws. And by the way, this is the executive branch. We're allowed to execute the law. They can't step in here and interfere with our analysis. Citing other cases called the Cheney case. Here, Trump's directives to his subordinates in particular are exactly the type of enforcement prioritization that has been understood as unsuitable for judges to weigh in on. Like these other cases, the decision to increase investigations and prosecutions and other enforcement on a particular subject are clearly within the executive branch's priorities. We can focus on these cases and not these cases because we have only so many resources available at our disposal. Likewise, a decision to alter these things does not bring to bear the government's power over any individual, and it's not a focal point for judicial review. Citing some other concepts here, that alone is not standing, and it's not an addressable injury that they should be able to sue on. Now, even if they could overcome these problems, Trump and the Department of Commerce should be dismissed. He's not the proper subject of an APA challenge, and they're going to fail on the merits anyways. The court should never even reach these merits. You don't have jurisdiction. This is a non-justiciable case. No standing, it's not ripe, and more. And in addition, it's not even possible to litigate this. All of these are still being deliberated. So we're just deliberating about hypotheticals. No final rule by the Postal Service. And the state citizenship list, they're worried it's going to exclude somebody, but we don't even know how we're making the list yet. So their arguments are purely speculative, and we're working through it right now. So, as we see, lots of details. Here, they say state citizenship lists, for example, might be used solely to facilitate post-election law enforcement activity. The purpose of the list is not specified in the order, and so we could use it before an election, we could use it after the election. Non-inclusion on a state list doesn't hinder anybody's ability to vote at all. We might just check after the election and just validate. They're just so nervous about anyone having a separate list because that means there's accountability for their list. So ultimately, they haven't carried their burden. There's no irreparable harm to them. executive branch is allowed to do this. No harm will become or befall them. The text of the order says, all the order says is we're going to figure out what is coming next, not that anything has even come yet. And so ultimately, as you can see, fast forwarding through it to the end, they have no claims. So in summation, as we come to the close, and by the way, if you're going to issue an injunction, make them post a bond. So ultimately, they don't have a claim here. Dismiss this lawsuit, both of them, against the League of Women Voters and the others, moved here to deny their injunction and get rid of these claims. Signed here in a big fat motion to dismiss by Stephen Pezzi, senior trial counsel over in the DOJ Civil Division, in a nice filing. So that, of course, gives us a little insight into what's happening over there. It doesn't look like there's been a lot of progress, according to their motion, saying that, this is what's going to be happening, but maybe soon. And a lot of different permutations as to how this could unfold. But regardless, they're nervous about it because they don't want any election integrity at all. Their little election integrity group is really about pretending like they care. They don't. They want a total free-for-all, which is the problem. But Trump was out over the weekend in an interview talking about the SAVE Act. He says they don't want voter ID. They don't want voter lists. They don't want to check mail-in ballots or anything. They just want to cheat. He's absolutely right about that. Here's the president.
Anytime you have mail-in voting, you're going to
Let's boost his volume up so we can hear him loud and clear.
have a rigged election. Anytime you're not using voter ID, the Democrats don't want, they're fighting us on the Save America Act. Anytime you don't have, when somebody says we don't want voter identification, that means they want to cheat.
Yeah.
Then they say we don't want citizenship. We don't want proof of citizenship. They don't want it to be a part of the voting process. And yet, when it comes to voting, the interesting thing is 97% of the Republicans want voter ID. But if you add the Republicans and the Democrats together, 86% want. Jimmy Carter, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of him as a president, but Jimmy Carter had a committee that was set up, and along with Scoop Jackson, some very respected people. And the primary finding of the committee on the election stuff, primary finding of the committee was can't have mail-in voting, it's crooked. Anytime you have mail-in.
Yeah, and so they seem very nervous about this, right? Nothing has even dropped yet, but they're already suing, and the judges are already facilitating their lawsuits, saying the red states can't come in, can't move it to D.C., which is the base of operations where the executive order is emanating from, where all the agencies are from, and more. They want to keep these things. And just like we've covered here at the outset of the Trump administration, many of these federal judges think they are the president and that they can control the country from their black robes. But there's nothing to even fight about yet. All they're doing is talking. Relax, relax, relax. Election integrity will be coming. And the president is explaining that unequivocally, which is why they're so nervous, because this grift has gone on long enough for them with their racist, gerrymandered maps, with their political attacks and lawfare to try to disqualify people, to spy on campaigns and all of the other things. Now coming to a close, and elections are right around the corner. So we'll be here to continue to cover it. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, we're not done yet. We got one final update on the day, and then we'll hear from you. The Biden folks are now panicking and scrambling to stop the release of this 2017 audio. Remember that we heard Joe Biden talking to the special counsel, Robert Hur, and he didn't sound like he knew really anything about where he was or about his son's death or about when he was even the vice president. But there's more that has not been released yet. And it goes all the way back to the 2017 audio where Joe was sitting down with that journalist or that author to talk about his book that involved classified information, which was the subject of the not raid, but the reacquisition of those classified documents. Of course, they didn't go through Dr. Jill Biden's underwear like they did Melania's, because a little bit of a different standard here if you're a Democrat versus a political opponent of the Democrats like Trump was. But now they have submitted a plea that they don't want this audio to be released. And the way this originated was back in 2024, ultimately. Heritage Foundation and Mike Howell sued the DOJ back under Biden for a release under FOIA to get all this information out. And we have a lot of questions about this because the more fraudulent Joe Biden's presidency was, the more lacking in actual capacity in his brain to sign off on executive orders, to sign pardons and more, the more opportunity there is to undo those things. And so Fox News is explaining that they were going back to those book sessions saying Biden's people are expected to object to this. He had a ghost writer for one of his books to whom he was shoveling classified information. And it's 70 hours of redacted recordings that they want now to come out. And we remember some of the exchanges between Joe and Robert Hur in these conversations, which were taking place. Laura Ingraham, of course, covered it on her show. But here was one sampling when Joe didn't know much about his son who died.
Watch.
We were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer shot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. They're not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Oh, what's up, Sean? So anyways, so that's what we've got from Joe. And Joe was struggling in that little short clip, but he was asked about a prior exchange. And now Biden's people are trying to fight the release of this audio. And so here's what the lawsuit filing had to say. This was a joint status report that went into the District of Columbia. And the plaintiffs are Heritage Foundation and Mike Howell. And before we jump into this, just a reminder of what actually happened back in 2024. So 3/6/2024, they sued the DOJ back then. Okay, the 24 election had not happened. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are still wrecking the country. And so they sued. They said, we want action here. We want the information that was relied upon by Robert Hur, okay, the guy who was actually interviewing him at the time. We want to know what he was listening to in addition to his interview with Joe. There's underlying materials. Specifically, the request seeks all records relied upon by special counsel Hur to write the passages of the report. The report was and continues to be the subject of widespread media and government attention. A good deal of interest has been focusing on this, on his mental faculties and his memory, of which he has none. There is also considerable and vigorous debate in the press and Congress and the branches about the report. A good deal about this is about Biden's brain. The release of the report almost immediately generated intense conversation. House subpoenaed Garland for it. And ultimately, the footage was leaked, right? That footage of her was not officially released, is my understanding. It was released in a leak to Axios. So Heritage Foundation, shout out to them in D.C. Mike Howell leads their oversight project. DOJ is a federal agency at the time protecting Joe Biden. So what they wanted were excerpts and information about these excerpts. Okay, the Hur report was huge. Joe Biden had classified documents all over the place and didn't go to jail for that. Nobody prosecuted him for that because he's an elderly old man with bad brain in his head. But still somehow had the capacity to sign pardons and to sign executive orders and to protect Hunty Poo and Fauci Poo on their way out the door. So here in page 247 of this whole report says, given intelligence and military officials present and the topics discussed at the meeting with Zwanitzer, the ghostwriter, Biden should have realized his notes had classified information inside. But taken as a whole, the evidence will likely leave jurors with reasonable doubts about whether Biden knew that he was sharing classified information with this guy and intended to do so. For these jurors, Biden's apparent lapses and failures in February and April 2017, okay? So Biden's brain was fried in this interview that we just listened to and many of the other interviews. But his failures in memory in 2017 will likely appear consistent with the diminished faculties and faulty memory that he showed in Zwanitzer's interview recordings and in our interview of him. Okay. Brain was fried in 17. It's on recording. They don't want to release those recordings. His brain is fried in 2024 at the time that Her interviewed him and in 2017. He says it's basically the same. So if you put him on a stand right now, we charge him with a crime, he's going to get up on the stand and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then we can't convict him, said Robert Hur. So I guess we won't even try. But hold on a second. We got to raid Trump again. So his brain was fried in 17, which is probably why Obama said, you're not running there, Joe. You don't even know what day it is. Hillary got slotted in, even though he was the heir apparent, he was VP. Then they shoved him back in there in 2020, 3 years after that. So they want information. We conclude the evidence does not establish that Biden willfully disclosed national defense information to Zwanitzer because he did so in an incapacitated fashion. Okay, his brain doesn't even work. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't willful. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. He's just an old man wandering around, just telling war stories. Here's another passage. They want information about this. Third, as discussed to some extent above, Biden will likely present himself to the jury, as he did during his interview with our office, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. While he is and must be accountable for his actions, he is, after all, the president. Based on our direct observations of him, Mr. Biden is someone for whom many jurors will want to search for reasonable doubt. That's nice. It would be difficult to convince a jury they should convict him, by then a former president who will at least be well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. That's a real nice interpretation to make sure he doesn't get charged. Now, here's passage 3. In his interview with our office, Robert Hur writes, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. He said, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began in 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember even within several years when his son died. His memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he mistakenly said, quote, he had a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact, Eikenberry was an ally with whom Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to Obama. So in a case where the government must prove Biden knew he had possession of classified Afghan documents after the vice presidency and chose to keep those, knowing he was violating the law, we expect that at trial, his lawyers would say, no, his brain is fried. He's got limitations on recall. Now, of course, we also expect the jurors to be struck by the place where the documents were found, in a badly damaged box in the garage near a collapsed dog crate, a dog bed, and a Zappos box, an empty bucket, a broken lamp wrapped with duct tape, potting soil, and synthetic firewood. That's Joe's just like little distraction corner. Now just put him out there in the dog bed. Maybe lock him in there. All right. Yeah. Bring your documents with you there, Joe. Yeah. Just don't light a fire. Synthetic firewood. Just keep trying to light it there, Joe. We'll come back in a couple hours. After all, another passage. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations. both at the time he spoke to Zwanitzer in 17, as evidenced by their recorded conversations, and today as evidenced by his recorded interview with our office. Fried back then, fried right now. But he was the president for 4 years, signing everything. Can't remember crap. Probably why they made him president. Yeah, just shove him in there. He'll do whatever we say. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations with Zwanitzer from 2017 are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. We made this dude the president. We didn't do it. They did. In 17, he was fried. We had Trump had 4 years and they just brought him back. Oh, here's the next passage. We have also considered that at trial, Biden would likely present himself to the jury and they'll identify with reasonable doubt. Same thing about willfulness there. And here's the last one. In addition, Biden's memory was significantly limited, both during his interviews in 17 and his interview with our office in 2023. So Heritage, they sued back in 24. Now, of course, the guard has changed dramatically and the litigation is continuing on. And here is the latest. So as of 5/8 in the District of Columbia, we got a joint status report on this. And here's what Joe Biden's position is. They say Joe Biden intends, the DOJ, rather intends to disclose the written transcript and the audio recordings, okay? When they sued, it was Biden's DOJ. Now it's the Trump DOJ. Oh, how those turntables have turned. Saying here, with redactions over to Congress pursuant to a request from Jim Jordan, House Judiciary Committee, over as well to the Heritage Foundation. So the new DOJ comes in and says, sure, happy to give it to you. How many copies would you like? Yeah, it'll be ready on Friday at 5. Biden, though, through his counsel, has advised the department he's now going to seek to intervene to prevent any disclosures. The department does not oppose intervention. DOJ says, yeah, come on in here, Joe. What's your argument going to be? Executive privilege? You mean the same executive privilege that you waived when Trump tried to invoke it, you jerk? If Biden does not seek to intervene on or before tomorrow, the department will disclose the material shortly thereafter. Otherwise, if Biden does intervene, the department will disclose the material on June 15th. And then it's going to be wild. Because if his brain was fried in 17, I mean, how much worse was it in 21? The foregoing status now this is now being written by Heritage. They say the foregoing status update from the DOJ is a surprise to us because the department had told us that a release was forthcoming and that negotiations with counsel for Biden were focused on certain particular materials, which would be expected, as we've never said that some redactions would be appropriate. Like he's talking about classified documents, and we don't want those classified aspects of the documents to be released. We're fine with that. Now, it appears, writes Heritage, that after lengthy negotiations covering several months, at no point seeking to intervene in this case on a timely basis, now Biden is changing his position, scrambling, now seeking to even enjoin the release of the portions of transcripts that match the exact phrases quoted in the Hur report. The potential intervention by Biden now and the new development of a discretionary release to the House Judiciary Committee raises a number of issues. Now, as we understand the matter, Biden would need an order barring release in this case and an order enjoining the department from producing to the Judiciary Committee all of that by June 15th. So if Biden wants to step in here and stop it, you better do it like in multiple fashions. Now, that will necessitate emergency litigation, particularly if these applications to the D.C. Circuit or to the Supreme Court are contemplated. It would also likely lead to intervention by the House Judiciary Committee, which would complicate things even further. Now, Heritage says, we've conferred multiple times with the DOJ and understand that the answer as to how this litigation will now apparently unfold is in the hands of counsel for Biden's lawyers. Heritage have emailed and called lead counsel for Biden multiple times to get clarity. Hey, are you guys going to file intervention papers? Roughly, what will a proposed pleading in intervention on the side of Biden look like? since counsel did share with us that they intend to intervene on the DOJ side, will a separate action seeking injunctive relief to block the documents also be filed? On what possible basis, besides vague assertion that the DOJ position has changed, could Biden even cite in order to establish that his intervention is timely? And why is further delay being added after we were first notified of intervention that it would be sought before the intervention papers were actually being filed? So we have no clear answers to any of these. And indeed, we were told that providing such information to this court in this report is unnecessary because Biden is not even a party. Now, counsel for his lawyers have not explained to us how that position makes any sense, given that they intend to try to become a party to this case, nor has Biden's lawyers even responded to our point that surely this court would appreciate knowing more about their intentions with some specificity. Now, to date, we have been unable to speak with anyone other than a senior associate working on the matter. That senior associate provided no information as to how Biden expects this complex litigation to unfold. His lead lawyer yesterday emailed and indicated that she had lost her voice and thus could not speak. Okay, can you email? Do your fingers work? But provided no explanation for why she had neither previously emailed nor armed her senior associate, who is a veteran of the DOJ Civil Division staff, with actual information that she could provide to us in a phone call. What the heck? You're lost your voice? Well, type it up. Further attempts to engage by email with Biden's lawyers were unavailing. Did somebody slice her vocal cords or something? What the hell's going on here? But which they apparently would not put in writing and would not discuss until a phone call now scheduled for Monday. All right. So Biden's lead counsel was unable to provide any information about Biden's submissions, arguing that these discussions were premature, where it's not. It's 16 months late. We've been fighting this for years now, and incredibly indicating that despite the June 15th production date, the motion to intervene would not be filed until mid next week, and that Biden would seek up to 3 days after a ruling granting a motion to intervene to submit a proposed schedule. Now, that is no way to conduct litigation, and it smacks of kicking the can down the road to justify delaying the June 15th production by some form of administrative injunction. That is not only unfair to us, Heritage, and the DOJ, it's also massively unfair to you, Judge, which is being presented like an emergency procedural morass with the parties and potential new party. They should try to resolve it amongst themselves, not take it to you. That's what we're doing. So in light of this, Heritage says, we note the following. Now, we currently intend to object to the intervention. Okay, we'll tell you what we're going to do. We don't know what the hell they're doing. She can't speak. Her fingers are cut off. No one's over there. So we're going to tell you, when they intervene, we're going to object and say it's untimely. Biden was well aware of both this action and the potential for divergence of interest with the department back on January 20th, 2025 at 12:01 p.m. when Trump came in. Yet he waited well over a year to seek to intervene despite open filings in the public docket indicating that negotiations between us and the department, DOJ, have been ongoing. And second, we also reserve our rights to object to intervention on non-timeliness grounds as well. Pending review of the contemplated motion to intervene, given the failure of his lawyers to even inform the parties of the basis and the claims in intervening supporting the department. And third, we also will seek to consolidate with this action a separately filed action. If one is even filed, again, Biden's lawyers will neither confirm nor deny any of that, to enjoin production to plaintiff or to the House Judiciary Committee. So if they sue elsewhere, we're going to get on that one too. And fourth, we reiterate the offer that we have made many times to Biden's lawyers. We've agreed to meet and confer with them and agree on a consolidated path now in order to narrow the issues that we bring back to you, Judge, so we can finally cut to the heart of the matter. The public deserves to hear the tapes and read the transcripts as redacted by Trump's now DOJ. Plaintiffs, we regret that they are currently unable to assist this court in the process due to the repeated failure of Biden's crap lawyers to engage with us, putting off even initial substantive conversations until next week. It's so good. It's just, Judge, we're really sorry that we can't help you. We want to help you, but Biden's lawyers are just terrible. They just suck. Total scum. They're not even calling us back. Can she get one of those voice changer things and she can just talk through that? I don't know what's going on over there, but John J. Halloran submitted this, and Biden's lawyers are trying to kick the can down the road and really prevent, ultimately, I think by just delay, any release of the documents because they will be devastating to him. And if he was fried in 2017 and they made him president for 4 years in 21, that might mean the entire presidency should be invalidated. Here was one more exchange.
Was this memo
courtesy of Joe talking about these classified documents? Again, this was part of the leaked filing that was released about 11 months ago in 2025, courtesy of Axios.
Mr. President, was this something that you consciously kept after your term as vice president? Is this something that you wanted to hold on to?
I don't recall. Did I have this? Was this in my possession, this memo?
Yes, to give you some context for this, Mr. President, it was found in the front of this notebook that's on the first page, and the notebook was found in the library at the Lake House in one of the drawers in the cabinet.
You don't recall. I don't recall how it got back. I mean, I don't recall how it got back in the book because I sent it to the president. I gave it to the president. And this looks like the original. I don't think maybe there's a copy made of it, but I don't think so.
It was faxed, just to give you
Oh, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
All right, now I got it. I wasn't sure whether I handed it to the president. It was faxed to the president, which I had the copy.
Right.
Okay.
You had the original?
Yeah, I had the original, and I just put it in the book, and that was it.
Okay. Were you aware that you had kept it after your term as vice president? Did you know that you had it?
I don't know that I knew, but it wasn't something I would have stopped to think about.
The reason I ask is it's been written about. Bob Woodward wrote about it in one of his books. Jules Woodcover wrote about it in his biography.
He has no idea who you're talking about.
So that's the reason I asked, is if it was something that you wanted to hang on to because it was going to be the subject of reporting or history.
I don't know if it would be subject of reporting, but I wanted to I guess I wanted to hang on to it just for posterity's sake. I mean, this was my position on Afghanistan. I've been of the view, from a historical standpoint, that there are certain points in history, world history, where fundamental things change, usually technology. For example, without Gutenberg's printing press, Europe would be a very different place. Literally a different place, because countries would not have known what was happening in other countries.
All right, old man telling a story again.
You know, think about a stupid idea, a notion. Nixon probably would have been president where he used to television, where he sweated. I mean sincerely. He was sweating so profusely in that debate. A lot of people thought he won the debate, but he lost the debate because of his demeanor. So there's a lot of things that I think are fundamentally changing how international societies function. And they relate a lot to technology. And one of the things that
let me tell you about the internet. You know about that?
That a lot has changed in terms of everything from the internet to the way in which we communicate with one another.
We don't even fax anymore.
That has fundamentally altered the ability. I've had this discussion with the press.
Mr. President, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I'm sorry. Anyway, that's what I wanted to do. It had nothing to do with Afghanistan.
Okay, that answered my question.
And Mark, just really quickly, I promise it'll be brief. I just really would like to avoid, for the purpose of a clean record, getting into speculative areas. When the president responded and said, I don't recall intending to keep this memo, you then said, well, might you have thought it was important to keep and whatever? And he said, well, I guess I could have. His recollection, as I understand it, is he does not recall specifically intending to keep this memo after he left the vice presidency. And I want these questions to be as clearly answered and recorded on the transcript as possible.
Yeah, okay. So that's what we're dealing with in 2020. What happened in 2017? Hopefully we get those records released with haste so that we can start to unravel some of those auto pens, his executive orders, and his pardons to some of the biggest criminals in America. Guy can't remember anything. And apparently the 2017 recordings confirm the same. So we'll keep our eye on this case. Thank you to Heritage Foundation for filing the lawsuit and staying after it. Hopefully the ladies' vocal cords start to work. You can talk to their lawyers, but we'll be here, my friends, to cover this one. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right. If you're just getting here, it has been a lovely Monday. The Democrats are in panic mode. According to them, one Democrat texting another one House Democrat texting Axios, F word, and others saying that, yeah, the party is really struggling. They had a full meeting on Saturday. Panic mode is the key phrase today. And one of their ideas is to just eliminate the entire Virginia Supreme Court. Reduce the retirement age from 73 down to 54 and say, you're all out of here. Then reappoint them, reverse the case, and then steal another 5 seats from Republicans throughout Virginia. That's how they operate. But fortunately, sounds like it's going to be a long shot. We then heard from this lady who is out in Alabama. In Alabama, also submitted an appeal to the Supreme Court requesting a stay. Oh, look at this. Stock it updated. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Judgment vacated. Case remanded for further consideration. Victory out of Alabama today. Look at that. Wow, man. Fresh out of the oven. Here it is. Says on appeal from the U.S. District Court for Northern District of Alabama, these causes submitted out of the Supreme Court. It is ordered and adjudged that by this court, that the judgments of the above causes are vacated. The case is remanded in furtherance in light and consideration of Louisiana versus Calais. Sounds like a victory to us, baby. So that means you guys, the lower court. So they were, just to go back on this real quickly, this just dropped. Issue an injunction barring the state from using the plan, or alternatively expedite the consideration of these cases in light of Calais, right? So expedite this, send it back down, tell the lower courts they have to consider Calais, and they've now done that. So cases are remanded back for further consideration in light of Louisiana versus Calais. Can't draw your racist maps. The lower level judgments are vacated. The lower level judgments were saying you have to use the racist maps. Now those are gone. Victory out of the Supreme Court. So another one drops, and they got to pay some fees too. Appellants recover $300 and another $300. Love it, baby. Another good way to wrap it up. So that just happened today. And that's funny because this dude was saying, oh, no, I don't think they're going to expedite it at all. And we said, we think they will because the Supreme Court just ruled accordingly on a very similar issue. So UW Clemens, wrong, but it happens. Sometimes we're wrong. So anyways, nice victory. That one just dropped. We hit the refresh in that segment, but sometimes, man, fresh out of the oven, we get to enjoy the goodness. Take a whiff of it. Smells good. Oh, my nose is still clogged. Sorry about that. Says denied as moot application. Another application denied as moot. The judgment will be issued forthwith. And they dissent. The lib judges. Dissent all you want. No one cares. All right. So good news. Nice way to close it out. All right. Then we also talked about the U.S. Postal Service and the state citizenship battle, the state citizenship list battle. DOJ submitted a big, fat, thick, heavy motion to dismiss and to eliminate the challenges brought by the blue states and the League of Women Voters. Glorious, glorious there. Trump talking about the SAVE Act. Biden scrambling to, I guess, get some lawyers who can answer the friggin' phone, but does not want this 2017 audio to come out. The Her audio has already come out. They don't want any more audio to come out. But it's been a lovely day. And so now, my friends, let's hear from you. And let's see what you say about, hey, this is how I feel right now. Thank you, Jigam. Jigam just posted this meme right here. That's how I feel right now. Yeah, baby. We love when that happens. Nice. Thank you, Supreme Court. Lib judges dissenting away. Gigam, meme smith extraordinaire. And now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about all this. Hey, Patrick, I did see that big fat dono come in, but you didn't add a question. So I'll try to keep my eye on it. Yeah, drop it in the chat and we'll see what you got cooking there. Patrick, thank you for the nice dono. And let's see who's here today on the evening. What a nice way to close it out. Jeffrey Adams, thank you for flagging it for us too. Says SCOTUS rules on the Alabama case. Looks like a nice victory. Let's take a look and see if there's any reaction to that over on X. Let's see here. Jake Sherman, Alabama gets the green light to redraw the 2 Democrat seats. Just cleared the way. Supreme Court just cleared the way to redraw the maps. Alabama speaker. No, it's a little old. That's a little old, a couple days ago. I want to see if governors or AGs or anybody else posted about it. Haven't seen anything yet. But let's see what you have to say about this. I saw a bunch of membos come in. Thank you for bringing in our newest of new membos. We do members only streams in the morning and on Saturday. And we had a great one this morning talking about all sorts of fun stuff. Who's here? Oh, it's Joe Biden, the Joe Biden action figure, the Life of the Party action figure, collector's edition toy. Man, that's exciting. Yeah, get your kid one of those and then they'll run away and never come home again. Thank you for that one. Hey, M. McKenna, if they do that to the Supreme Court, Trump should respond by making DC square again. We did a full segment on that, M. McKenna. And that's actually, I think, an interesting idea because it was a retro session. So it was gifted to DC, 10 by 10 square miles. Then there was a vote, so-called, to return it back in the run-up to the Civil War so that the slaveholders up there could have that land and it wouldn't be part of the federal district. And it required both the county and the town to affirmatively vote to take that land back. And one of the two, I think the town did not vote in favor of it, but the county had more votes. And so they just combined them and they said, sure. And they voted to take it back, essentially. And that was illegal. The whole thing was illegal, as usual. Sounds like it's been going on there for a long time. So it's not a bad idea. And then you could kind of put all of the Democrats who suckle off the federal teat back into a little playpen together, and they can just live with themselves. Hey, Great Eagle One. New payment platform coming from Edmonton, Canada, going to help low-income families in the USA of online paid-to-shop CA. Paid-to-shop-ca.go. Look it up from Great Eagle One. Great Eagle One in the house. Thank you for the nice dono. Paid-to-shop-ca.go. Courtesy of Great Eagle One. Hey, biology always wins. What's up? Thanks for bringing in 5 new membo friends. See you tomorrow morning. Meow 151. We got Thorodinson 5520 in the house. I rule. Yes, you do. Cabaduck is here. James Lowe, all gifted membos. Courtesy of biology always wins. Biology always bringing in so many membos. Thank you for doing that. And welcome new membo friends. Biology, thank you for being a membo yourself. And we'll see everybody in the morning for our beautiful stream together. Hey, Object Class Keeter, what's happening? If Virginia Dems do this, they will lose moderates and will probably turn the state to lean R as a backlash. Dems will lose all credibility in the state. Yeah, I don't know. Like, remember when they threw Trump off the ballot, literally, in Colorado? They said he cannot be on the ballot. So they're going to take him off the ballot. And as blue as ever, you know? Like, that's how these people play. I think the moderates might, you know, but if you just keep beating the moderates into submission, eventually they just leave, which I think might be their strategy. But yeah, remember that? Like, it's crazy. They just think, whatever, we don't care about the moderates. Get out of here. We don't want you here anyways. Vote blue or else you're dead to us. But yeah, I mean, Virginia is a little bit of a different story, a lot more history there, but yeah, they're crazy, man. Tim Jake, what's up, Tim Jake? There are some who call me Tim. Mary Ward, what's up? Jody Vance coming in. Hey, Jamie, aka me, welcome. JD Mix, Stitch Mania in the house. Thank you, Tim Jake. There are some who call me Tim. We appreciate that. Yeah, in Maine, they tried to throw him off too, Bonnie. I think that's right. Yeah. What's up, Bonnie? Good to see you. It's been a little while. Look at these three kiddos playing around with a watermelon. Yeah, Debbie or not Debbie. I did see that. Cameras to be allowed in the Charlie Kirk trial. We have not covered that one yet. Maybe that'll be worthwhile. Was there a written order on that, or was there just a verbal order? Probably a written order that might be worth going through. But yeah, very good news. And I think they bumped the preliminary hearing out to the summer? Not the trial, just the prelim. So that is good news. Thank you, Debbie, for being here. 27 months. Pretty sure that's 3 babies, but I need a calculator and a spreadsheet to confirm that. Thank you, Debbie. Cliff Meggs. This shows how crazy the Democrats have become. They can see the 2030 census coming, which will correct seats stolen from the 2020 census. 13 plus seats gone. Add 10 to 13 from U.S. SCOTUS ruling on gerrymandering, the Voting Rights Act, by race and other recent efforts by Texas. Power is in the rearview mirror. Thune needs to ditch the filibuster, pass the SAVE Act. Democrats will do this and then pack SCOTUS. Democrats are about to lose power for years. Yeah, this is what happens when you play. Like when you actually show up to play. And you play like the Democrats play. It's too bad that the census is also not happening right now. That's why we need the recensus as well. Because the 2030 census, like, you know, God forbid we don't have the White House. Joe Biden rigged the census. They just, you know, they control the metrics, the numbers, calculate like this and like that. Nobody knows how they did it. We've covered that story here before, but yeah, I think a review of how they calculated the things in the census was also pretty well rigged. Thank you for that one. Courtesy of Cliff Meggs in the house. Hey, Dark Rogue. 20 membos coming in courtesy of Dark Rogue. Thank you, Dark Rogue. Very nice of you. Look who's here. Alexio Garcia, Denisha Burdell. What's up? Don't you wish you knew? Yeah. Miss Daisy. Reaction to action. True enjoyer. What's up, Francis Mayo? Zeno King in the house. DSK. What's up, Wolf Clan Suzanne? We got My Pup Rosie. Sounds adorable. Dave Rich. Vern the Barbarian. Swanker. Hammond. Casey Moe. Ben Stows. USA #1. And 0x3 security. All gifted membos. Thank you for that. Dark Rogue OG in the house. Thank you, Dark Rogue, for the nice donos and for the membos. We appreciate you. Hey, Sharpie guys, so help me understand this, Rob. The leftist wingdings are willing to force retirement on even the Supreme Court justices that voted for them too. Seriously desperate, in my opinion, Rob. So what happens if the Republicans do the same thing in return to them? Like force the Supreme Court to retire, and Trump could put in 9 conservative justices. Little different because that would require a constitutional amendment. So there's a safety valve that protects that. It's called the Constitution. They enjoy their term of office for life. Can you imagine the squealing from the lefties? I wonder if that's even a thing. What say you, brother? Yeah, so it'd be hard to do that up at SCOTUS land. States are a little bit different because they've got other mechanisms governing that. But at SCOTUS, I mean, what if you ended the filibuster and then packed the Supreme Court anyways? Then, you know, they'll do that. Like there was I wonder if that precedent would remain, but FDR tried to pack the court. And then they had the switch in time that saved the 9 when this is debatable amongst the legal scholars about whether this happened or not. But then the judges started to not be so harsh on FDR's New Deal policies and allow a lot of it to go through. And then the public was very upset about that attempt. And then they ultimately didn't pack the court back then. But I wonder if that same public outrage would happen now. If the Dems nuked the filibuster and tried it. I don't know. Hey, Dark Rogue. Since race is the basis for something as important as the vote, I guess Republicans should publicly accuse Democrats of trying to repeal the Civil Rights Bill. That's how you play hardball, Republicans. Yeah, well, I mean, it sort of feels like that. Like even in this Alabama decision, as they framed it up to SCOTUS, they said they were literally trying to have separate but equal, basically. Right? The Mobile, like the white Mobile voters versus the black Mobile voters, racially gerrymandering everybody. It's like separate but equal. It's like maybe the Democrats are opposed to the civil rights bill. They want people to be at the front of the bus and the back of the bus again because they're racists. Their whole political ideology is based on race. What color, what genitals do you have? What's your sex? What's your ethnicity? Are you gay or not? It's like all these things. Like everything is about the color of your skin, not the content of your character, which is a new modality for them. Dark Rogue, thank you for the nice dono and for the membos. Queen Bee's Art Hive, 30 months as a membo, over 3 babies, working on number 4. Thank you, Queen Bees. Much love and many prayers for you all, my real fam. Man, Queen Bee, we appreciate that. Thanks for hanging with us, being part of the Watcher fam. We're grateful to have you here. Thanks for supporting us for so long. Hopefully much more to come. And I hope your week is off to a beautiful and amazing start. Hey, Dark Rogue. Wait, let me remind you that back during 2016, it was Eric Holder who paid Obama's attorney general, Obama's wingman, who said after the Philly DA showed Eric a video of people threatening voters at the poll to vote for Hillary, Eric dismissed, saying, it's their turn. I vaguely remember that. Was that like the Black Panthers, or there was some group of people who were outside a polling place, kind of like swinging around clubs and stuff? Like that, I think that's voter intimidation. He said, no, it's only voter intimidation when you do it to us, not when we do it to you. Oh, that's interesting. And there was a lot of that. Yeah, so the whole DOJ was weaponized under them. And then Obama, of course, with Brennan and Clapper and Comey, then they created a whole Russia collusion hoax right out of thin air. I think Holder was gone by that time. I think it was Loretta Lynch who was next. But we remember, Dark Rogue. And now Eric Holder and Obama are like, this is the end of democracy. I can't believe what Trump is doing. You're like, give me a break, you guys. You started the whole thing. Actually, even before that, but they really played on it hard and they did the old, oh, shucks, we're just nice guys here. Don't look at us. Thank you, Dark Rogue. We appreciate you, my man. Thanks again for the donos today. Knitting Kitten says, I think SCOTUS just posted their reply in the Alabama case. Looks like they were granted cert and a stay was put on the case, if I'm reading it right. I think you nailed it, Knitting Kitten. So the lower level decision to force them to use the racist maps now deleted. Go back down. No more unconstitutional maps. Supreme Court already articulated this very clearly and unequivocally in Louisiana. So get it done. Thank you, Knitting Kitten. And thank you guys for flagging that for me while we're bumbling around through the show. Knitting Kitten, thank you. Hey, Jonah Finn, 14 months as a membo, almost 2 babies. Imploding Demunist Party is self-inflicted too. Self-inflicted gift to watch, I think. I read that right. Well, you can only cheat so much. Like, just have a good policy. Just have a good vision for the country. Just have good deliverables. And maybe people might like you. It's like that tenet from AA in the 12-step programs. It's about attraction, not promotion. If you just are promoting yourself to everybody, hey, I'm amazing, I'm amazing, I'm amazing. You should buy from me. You should do what I want. We're a better party. We're great. He's a criminal. He's an abuser. He's a fascist, whatever. Then it's just all about promotion. Just live a little bit of an attractive life and people will come to you. And that will actually be more effective. People will say, wow, what does that guy have? What does that woman have? How can I be more like them? They seem like they've got their act together, like they're doing positive things, like they're not miserable people. Happy warriors, much more attractive than being like, everything sucks all the time. The patriarchy is making my life bad. Like, okay, maybe it's just you. Maybe it's a you problem. All right. Thank you, Jonathan. King of Biltong. Turn up the flavor with Peri Peri Biltong, baby. Mild heat, big flavor, over 50% protein to keep you going. Try the full peri peri range, BiltongUSA.com, code Robert, and you'll save 10% off on your order. So check it out. Chubby Stubby, there's a real simple, easy fix to their concerns of the state citizens list, possibly excluding citizens. Just provide the dang voter rolls like they've been requesting. Yeah, well, it's true. That's what they would do if they were honest people, but they're not. So they'd rather just keep the grift going and keep it all buried under wraps so nobody can see it. Thank you, Chubby. Good to see you. Joe B. Juan Kenobi is here. Rob does a better Hakeem Jeffries than Hakeem. Well, unfortunately, we've watched a lot of his mannerisms on TV. So we know. Thank you, thank you, Joe B. Juan Kenobi. Jeffrey Adams, what's up? SCOTUS rules on the Alabama case. Thank you, Jeffrey Adams. And I saw that one come through, so thanks for flagging it when it happened. Sharpie guy. Hey, Joe, when you're a big fat liar, you need to have a big fat memory. Oh, man, you can't hate Democrats enough, so I'll just pray for them. It's good. That's a good idea. Pray for some wisdom and an awakening. And a spiritual awakening would be good for him, too. Hey, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick. Did you send in a comment on this? Let me see. Patrick, thank you for that. I saw a follow-up. Did you have a comment about it? Let me just do a quick scroll over here. See if I see your question. You may not have been able to add it into this question, into this comment, but I do not know. Let me scroll. Hey, Robbie, just sent you $50 and have a question. Says, wouldn't any Virginia law reducing the age of the Supreme Court justices violate the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the ADEA of 1976? This is opening up the litigation to SCOTUS. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's already in their law. So I don't know much about that Age Discrimination Employment Act. Is it discrimination if you just set an upper bound? Like you're not discriminating against any specific person. It's just the new limit. They're not targeting a person and saying, Patrick, you're getting a little bit too old here and you're going to, time for you to go. It's just, this is the new general rule. It's a blanket rule across Virginia. And all judges, not anyone in particular, nobody's being singled out. It's not a targeted type of a discriminatory thing. It's just all judges now retire at 54. So you're all gone. Now you wonder, can it be retroactive? Do they have a claim that they were appointed for this period of time? But it's, it's a state guideline, right? It's a state law. So I think it probably would be litigated. But I don't know, maybe they could get away with it. But I don't know if it would be a violation of a federal law. And I don't know much about that act without looking it up, but I would imagine that that's more for singling out a person, right? It's a company with 50,000 employees. A couple people are getting up there. They get tossed out. Oh, we're going to make you learn coding now. And if you can't code, you got to go. You're like, all right. Seems like that might be a little bit discriminatory, but I would imagine it would be, challenged, certainly by the Republicans. And I can't imagine the Supreme Court judges are happy about this. That's also the silver lining in this. These Supreme Court judges who all now have to wait, presuming they don't ultimately get thrown off the court, which I don't think that they will. Now, Abigail Spanberger and Jay Jones and the other Democrats are going to have to show up back in front of the Supreme Court. And they're going to say, oh, look who's back. The Democrats who almost made us forcefully retire ourselves. Yeah, really looking forward to ruling against you in this matter. That obviously wouldn't happen explicitly, but everybody is a human. And so you just have that lingering in your brain. Oh, I remember you little cheaters and what you almost tried to do to us. So it may have a lingering sour taste in the mouths of any future litigants in front of Virginia. Definitely. Hey, Patrick, thank you for the nice donut, my man, and the great question. Hey, there it is. Should have just scrolled down. We got the best mods ever. Tim Jake, I don't know that I trust USPS lists of who lives where. We get mail for people who moved 20 years ago. Well, it's like getting dead voters, so it can't be worse. People who have never lived at this address and in my wife's maiden name, married for 30 years. Hilarious. It's a good point. But I've explained multiple times. I got a dead guy's ballot for like 2 elections. Maybe more. So, and I got his mail too. So I don't know. Maybe the state captures some. The U.S. Postal Service captures some others. Your wife's a citizen, though. So maybe that's a different standard. But it's a good point. It's not like the U.S. Postal Service is like a bastion of excellence. Shout out to our Postal Service workers out there. But you get the point. Like, yeah, we just moved to D.C., and we're getting mail from all sorts of people who definitely don't live here anymore. Like, who is this guy? I don't know. Who's this guy? I don't know. Patrick, thank you for the dono. Tim Jake, thank you for the fun question. Hilarious. Gary Baines. Hey, Rob, I guess you're doing well. Just wondering, do you live in a state or a district? We're in D.C. Yeah, we're in D.C. proper. We're in the Capitol Hill area, and we're going to get hit with that big fat income tax and all the things. So we decided, since we're coming out here, we're just going to dive into the deep end, you know? And it's been great. We're making some friends and getting settled in. Got a little interview set up over here. Hopefully we can invite some people to come join us for some sit-down interviews. And it should be fun. Thank you, Gary, for asking about it. But yeah, we're in D.C. proper, so right in Capitol Hill area. And it's been cool. It's been really cool so far. Family came out. We walked down to the Botanic Garden. We walked over to the Air and Space Museum. You know, it's kind of right in the thick of it. And our baby's going to be born here in July. And then maybe on the Supreme Court after that. We'll have to wait and see. Will Crump, thank you, Gary. Will Crump, wouldn't trying to force retire SCOVA be retaliatory on its face and stop dead in its tracks by the DOJ and SCOTUS? Another great related question. I think I would say the same answer. It's, you know, it almost would be like a bill of attainder kind of a situation, or like an ex post facto law, you know, which I have constitutional problems to them. Ex post facto law is the idea that you're making something illegal after the fact and then charging somebody for that. So like you do this thing, they say, oh, that's now going to be a crime. You're like, well, it wasn't a crime when I did it. Like, well, it is now. And you're going to jail for it. Like, but it was legal when I did it. It's it's not obviously not a perfect analog to that, but I would call it in the same category. It's like, it was this, now it's this, and you're responsible for that. Or a bill of attainder would be like a legislature that is basically passing a law to criminalize you, like to target you. And I don't think it really is either one of those. It's kind of, it's just like it's our new retirement age. Like they can set the retirement age. If they changed it from 73 to 71, that would probably be perfectly legal, right? Yeah, they can do that. Just we want some more youthful people on there, whatever. Change it to 65. So if they can do that, then, and that's general and it's not discriminating against, like, what if that discriminated against one guy on the Supreme Court? Okay, you're over that age, you're gone. So if they can do that as a mechanism, what if they just lower it to 54? So I don't know what the DOJ or SCOTUS would say if SCOTUS denies their appeal and says that this is a matter of state's law, state constitution, state process and procedure. Why would they interfere in that case? But I'm not saying that some people would not sue. I think that this would open up a whole can of lawsuits and litigation. But I don't know if it's discriminatory, if it's a generally applicable law that's kind of neutral on its face that has a very partisan political outcome. And I think it would be for everybody, right? So all the judges, it's not just the leftist judges. It was a 4-3 decision. So presumably, if it's a age 54 reduction, it's also nuking all the libs off the court. I would guess, unless they're under 54, which would be quite young. But is it targeting one political group? The conservative judges, I think, are older. They've been on there longer than the lib judges. But I don't know. It would be a very interesting case that we would love to cover. Just Don, Soulless Ginger. What's up, Just Don? Hey, 38 months as a membo. Thank you, Just Don. That's a long time. We've got multiple babies. We're grateful to have you. Don't forget, Jim tells you when you're finished. Thank you for the reminder. Just Don, Soulless Ginger. We'll be happy to do that. And let's just do that right now before I forget, which I am prone to do. So we'll get that queued up. Get much faster at this now. I know what buttons to click. And we're almost there. If I can type. Dun, 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 dun. Jim's live. All right, amazing. So as soon as we're done here, we'll send you over to Jim Tells You right next door on the YouTubes. We got Rick D. Yeah, at least they spelled Vergnia and Centaur correctly in the application to SCOTUS. It's a good point there, Rick. Yeah, I think in their initial filing, it was Vergnia. Hey, the Vergnians really need you to do something about this, SCOTUS. Our Centaurs are very unhappy with this outcome. Thank you, Rick D. He sent that from an airplane. Former LEO, the entire Democratic Party should be dissolved due to systemic corruption. Yeah, almost like systemic racism, except applied to them for their corruption and fraud. A boy can dream. Thank you, former. Great to see you. Tony, hey, here's a funny question for you. If Trump would have run under the Democrat Party, would you have voted for him? I would have. I mean, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think if he was articulating the same policies, and if it was like a Trump versus, you know, I like some of the other people in the primaries. I don't know. I'm thinking it was like Trump versus like George Bush, right? Again, I don't know. I'd be very inclined to do that. But it is a good question. But I don't know, you know, like in practical, like I really don't care about the party name. I care about the policies behind the party. But if Trump was running as a Democrat, I would have a lot of I would be very skeptical about that. Because then you kind of get aligned with the party. Then you have the rest of the Democrats. Like I would trust Trump as a Democrat, but not the other Democrats, if that makes sense. Because look what they do. Like they just suck you in and they act as a uniform conglomerate like the Borg. But yeah, I mean, we're not in love with a lot of the GOP, really. I think Trump has made MAGA and the GOP what it is, which is a lot more attractive than it used to be, which was mostly Democrat light, which we were not in favor of. Like, you know, George, like, oh, we're going to solve the border for you. No, you're not, you liars. Trump comes in, solves the border. So it's a great question. And as always, it depends. But I would consider it. I wouldn't outright reject it. Yeah, thank you, Tony. Hey, fun question. A Bear, what's up? Welcome aboard, A Bear. We had a great Membo stream this morning. Check it out. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, to get into it again. Hopefully we see you there, A Bear. Dan, the new Black Panther Party voter intimidation case was a political controversy in the United States concerning an incident in 2008. Many worries about voter intimidation cite a 2008 viral video of Black Panthers outside a Philadelphia voting place. That's the one I was thinking of. I don't recall whether or not that's what that commenter was talking about, but I definitely remember that one. But yeah, I think Eric Holder would have been around during that time, right? No, actually, no, because that would have been the Obama election. 2008, then 12, then we had 16. Hey, James, what's up, James? Hey, Rob, can you tell M Money to call Claudia? She watches the show and we can't reach her. Thanks. So yeah, yes, happy to do that. I'm not sure who M Money is, but M Money, paging M Money, paging M Money. This is a message from James Raleigh. Call Claudia. She watches the show, and Claudia, if you're out there, answer your phone. We can't reach her. So Claudia, pick up the phone when M Money calls. And Claudia, we hope everything's okay and that you're doing well. And if not, call somebody so we can help you. James, thank you for the ping. Hopefully everybody gets connected. And thanks for the dono. Swap Part, what's up? How fast would Democrats abandon illegal immigrants if they stop counting towards appropriations, electoral votes, and distribution of House seats? Dude, they would have secured that border so fast. If Democrats were coming in, if illegal aliens were coming in, like if all the illegal aliens came in and were voting aggressively red, which they should, by the way. Many of them are Catholic and coming from very Catholic countries. I don't know why they're voting for the abortion madness that the Democratic Party promises them. But we do understand it because the Democrats are promising amnesty and they want to be citizens here. So I get it. But if it was the opposite, if it was the other way, then yeah, man, they would have put a friggin' force field and a 50 caliber every 100 yards up there and done it quickly and aggressively. But they don't. So that's why they want to just flood everybody in. Thank you, Swap Part. But I completely agree. And many Republicans up until Trump, they wanted cheap labor, right? You have all the, the commerce groups. What do they call themselves? You know what I'm talking about. They want cheap labor. Democrats want cheap votes. Nobody really cares about the American person and the family and the population and the American worker. So instead, it's a free-for-all. And GDP goes up, numbers go up, even as country gets hollowed out. So for them and their perspective, it's like all win, all gravy. They keep getting richer. The rest of us have to deal with it. Thank you, Swap Part. Couldn't agree more. Hey, Joe, what's up, Joe? Bridget Macron looks like E.T. wearing the wig. She does. She absolutely does. I know exactly what image you're talking about. And she kind of has a weird, finger too, like Elliot. Yeah, thank you, Joe. What's up, Dan? National change of address list, USPS only runs for a maximum of 6 months. The person sending mail must subscribe for those changes and those notifications. Yeah, I just did that. I just did that. Quadcam. Part of me wonders if the Virginia Supreme Court changes are just a Roosevelt-style threat to get them to fall in line and they don't intend to actually do it. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Like FDR's threat and then the Supreme Court to switch in time that saved 9. Yeah, it could be. But that doesn't really get them any benefits this cycle. So, in other words, they're acting to get them to fall in line the next time this case comes back up to them. Could be, Quadcam. Thank you. Bodie, I love the idea of the citizens list. When there is 1 million more votes than citizens, it will be completely obvious. Yeah. And then the feds could come back and say, why do you have 1 million more votes in Arizona? Why did Virginia come up with 500,000 additional voters than there are citizens there? We need to reconcile the lists. They don't even want to do that, right? Not even a 1-to-1. Dude, the supremacy clause. Are you a first-year law student? No, I'm not. But I think this is going back to your original question about age discrimination. All right, let's take a look. I guess we should look the law up. Do you think that the age discrimination law applies to neutral, generally applicable laws that are passed by a state? Is that what you're saying? We'll just look it up since you called me a first-year law student. Let me see what your question was. Age Discrimination Employment Act of 1967. Age Discrimination Employment Act of 1967. So let's take a look at it. Over from the EEOC. It's very long. Okay, prohibition. So first of all, this is for employers. It shall be unlawful to fail or refuse to hire or discharge anyone because of their age. And again, they're not discharging anybody in Virginia because of their age. They're just setting the law of mandatory retirement at that age. So it's not targeting any individual, okay? It's just setting a general rule across the board. Also, unlawful for an employer to limit, segregate, or classify his employees in a way which is based on age or to reduce the wage based on age. Unlawful for any employment agency to fail or refuse to refer employment. Labor organization practices doesn't apply. And my point is, this law is not for that. This law applies to employers and to individuals, not to judges on the Supreme Court who are facing a generally neutral, generally applicable retirement mandatory age. So the supremacy clause would not be invoked at all. because there's no violation of the federal law. So hopefully that answers that question. And I'm not a first-year law school student either. Thank you, Patrick, for the nice donos. Hey, Tony, hey, what's going on? Especially in 2016, Tony, hey, Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. We had more problems with the Republicans than we did the Democrats. Especially in 16, we had more. Well, yeah, it's just like a patty cake back and forth. You know, as the Republicans come in, the Democrats come in, Republicans come in, Democrats come in. It's the same crap over and over and over. Nothing actually gets solved. So if you have a kind of like the reason we like Trump is because he wasn't the standard Republican. Now, if he's a Democrat, it would have been a little bit more difficult to palate, less palatable. But I still think that I would have given it more look than, you know, a traditional Democrat. Eric W. Thank you, Tony. Hey, Munkets. Eric W. Mississippi wants to redistrict now that the Supreme Court has declared racist districts are no longer illegal, but it was tied up in an appeal relating to its map. No more. Unanimous Fifth Circuit vacated the district court and boom, sent it back. From Eric W. over on X. And Real Norman Smith. So it's like dominoes are falling all across the country. It's a beautiful thing. Real Norman Smith. 2020 felt like my sacred vote had been stolen. Well, probably because it was, Real Norman Smith. Yeah, I don't know where you voted, but yeah, it was a total free-for-all, depending on your state, depending on what happened exactly. Your vote may not have been stolen per se, like it may have counted, but it just may have been diminished by other people's duplicate and triplicate votes and other, you know, massive fraud that occurred across the country. So it very well may have been, which is kind of a scary thing to think about, but it's true. All right. So friends, it has been a lovely stream. Thank you so much for sending in all those amazing donos and your support of our work here. Very grateful to have it. Couldn't do it without you. And so thank you for that. Bonnie. Hey, thank you, Bonnie. Yeah. You know, I notice when you don't come to the channel, I notice this for every single person. Bonnie, just let you know, I'm watching every episode. Good. Locals was giving me issues for months. Then I took a 16-day cruise. Hey, without internet through that's a good excuse, through the Panama Canal. Look at that. Sometimes you just need to unplug to get an attitude adjustment. Totally agree with that, Bonnie. Happy you're back. Hopefully it was amazing and you didn't catch the hantavirus. My ship in the Panama Canal. I even did my 9 zip line adventure in Costa Rica. It was a blast. So cool. Bonnie, amazing. Yeah, Bonnie's amazing. We saw Bonnie also use zip line from Vegas, right? When we were there, have you felt the baby kick yet? It's about that time. Oh yeah. This little kid's going to be a soccer player or something. Hopefully not a tap dancer, but maybe a soccer player. Kicking around or a boxer, just punching and rolling. And your boy is reading our baby, the Constitution. We did the Declaration of Independence. We just finished Article 2 of the Constitution last night. And now we're in Article 3, which is the good stuff. So we're going to get through we're taking it slow, you know, just little bits at a time. We don't want to overwhelm this little creature with too much American excellence. So I think we'll start Article 3 this week, and then we're going to go through all the amendments. And then once we're done with the amendments, I'm not real sure where we'll go. Maybe we'll go back to some of the Federalist Papers or something. But yeah, this little creature just starts kicking and moving and popping. Alexis is growing. She looks as beautiful as possibly can be. We're excited about it. She just had a great meeting today with somebody who's going to be a part of the birthing team. Got to meet her. So it was great. Bonnie, glad you had a great trip. Welcome back. And thank you for saying hello. We missed you, but we're glad you got some R&R time. Hey, Quadcam. Hey, thank you for looking it up. Yeah, apparently SCOTUS already ruled on age discrimination related to state judges and decided it did not probably apply. Gregory versus Ashcroft, 1991. Patrick says, oh, hell no. You are supporting the discrimination of a class of people over the age of 54. I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying that it's just a law that got changed. From employment in the government's office, which is unconditional, the supremacy clause. I'm betting on SCOTUS from Patrick. All right, well, we'll have to see what happens. Hey, Gregory versus Ashcroft. So Quadcam looked it up. Man, Patrick, I love that attitude you got over there. So Gregory versus Ashcroft. Supreme Court case. Here you go. Here's what the Supreme Court said. Thank you, QuadCam, for looking it up. Gregory versus Ashcroft, 1991, U.S. Supreme Court case that concerned a provision in the Missouri state constitution that required state judges to retire at age 70, and the court was asked to consider whether it conflicted with the Age Discrimination Employment Act, Patrick, and the Equal Protection Clause, and more. The provision was upheld. Just like I said, what a first-year law school student lucky guess, with the case being one of several Supreme Court decisions supporting the principle that ambiguous language will not be interpreted to intrude on areas of traditional state authority or important state governmental functions. We nailed that one. So 2 Missouri state judges brought suit against John D. Ashcroft, saying the state constitution violated federal law and the Supremacy Clause. Wow. The provision required all non-municipal judges to retire at age 70. District Court granted the governor's motion to dismiss, saying Missouri's judges were not protected by the ADA. They were appointees on a policy-making level. They're not employees under the act. The U.S. Court of Appeals affirmed that, further holding the provision did not violate the 14th Amendment. There was a rational basis for distinguishing judges. U.S. Supreme Court granted cert on both the ADA claim. Judgment in a 7-2 decision, the court held Missouri's provision did not violate the statute or the Equal Protection Clause. O'Connor, writing for the majority, held that the principles of federalism and dual sovereignty in the Supremacy Clause allow Congress to impose its will on the states, but only when acting under a constitutionally delegated power. The court applied the plain statement rule, and the opinion recognized the authority of the people of the states to determine the qualifications for these people. And so it's not an employee. It's a standard for judges, essentially, right? For government, I would say officials, appointees. The court found the state judges were not clearly employees and concluded the statute did not plainly cover them. As I just said, I don't think it applies to them. The court also found a rational basis for the retirement age and more based on Missouri citizens' interest in maintaining a judiciary capable of performing demanding tasks and more. White and Stevens concurred and dissented in part. So that's the decision, Patrick. There it is. QuadCam, thank you for looking it up. Thank you for the assist on that. Gregory versus Ashcroft. But Patrick, we appreciate the donos today. And I don't think it's age discrimination. It's just a standard. It's like, is requiring somebody to be age 35 in order to be the president discriminating against people who are 18 and over? Kind of. Yeah, it is. What if you want to be 21 and you want to be president? You can't. It's a qualification that's set by the Constitution. So I think there's precedent for it. But anyways, there's that one. Thank you, Patrick. Tony, hey, I noticed Just Dawn as over 3 years only shows 2. Thank you, Tony. Hey, Munkets. Just On as over 3 years only shows 2. Just On, thank you for being here for 3 years. You're amazing. And McKenna, ADA of the 1975 federal monies. Maybe that's the American with Disabilities Act. Yeah, I think, again, it's just going to be a qualification that's established by the people. I don't think it doesn't ring as like it's a disability. They're not targeting somebody with disabilities. They're not targeting somebody with age. Patrick, Jonah Finn is responding to Patrick. Yeah, also 10th Amendment, all powers not delegated to the U.S. by the Constitution or prohibited or reserved to the states. States can manage their own affairs, right? Just On, yeah, you rock. Thank you for being here for 3 years. Awesome. All right, so friends, what a lovely stream. We learned a lot today. Thank you for joining us as we navigated all that. Glad I got that answer right. Gosh, that would have been embarrassing. All right. Hey, what's going on? We got some comments on X, then we'll wrap on the day. Neuro D, great to see you. Thank you for linking to our locals, watching thewatchers.locals.com, and on YouTube if you want to join us tomorrow for the members only stream in the morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Satellite Boy, Hakeem says Dems are operating at maximum warfare. Totally. Yeah, that's how they work. Someone needs to bring this up to the likes of Thune, Johnson, and the rest and ask what level Republicans are operating at. In Congress, tiddlywinks. I remember that game. Or Pogs. They're playing Pogs. Remember that? 90s kids. Or Farkle for my wife. She's good at it. It'd be nice if we had somebody in DC that could cruise over to the Capitol and stick a mic in a Republican face. Eh, Rob? That's a pretty good idea. I wonder who could do that, Satellite Boy. I don't know if that's my style. I mean, maybe I should get more aggressive and just go chase these people down. Just like full sprint, like Forrest Gump down the field. There's John Thune. More like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. You know? Just go get these people. I might be in jail, though. Thank you, Satellite Boy, for the ringing endorsement. I do have questions for them. Why are you the way that you are? Number one. B-Torn, Neuro D has been nominated for the 10 best non-streamer support of the year. He's on page 10 of 11. You can vote every 24. I did that one time. I voted for you, Neuro D. I only did it once, though. I didn't realize you could do it every 24 hours until July. We'll do it again. B-Torn, fastest way to make your opinion known. You can call any one of them. You want to leave a message. Just call their numbers. 202-224-3121 is the switchboard. It will connect you to all the people you need to be connected to. Sean Hansen, what's up? VA Democrats remove Virginia Supreme Court. Too funny, the GOP would get 10 seats. It's crazy if they would do that. And here's Biden. Oh, how the turntables have turned right there. Oh, creepy little thing there. Thank you, B-Torn in the house. Friends, thank you for the great donos. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and all the things. Dan says, just like minimum ages for reps and senators to Congress, we need maximum ages too, as limiters. Yeah, you know, you don't really want, you wish you didn't have to do that. But we have Senator Mitch McConnell, who has been around forever, and then the other lady, Dianne Feinstein, who apparently was also completely gone, and Joe Biden, who's also gone. But Trump's pushing 80, man. So, you know, it's pretty good. You also don't want to disqualify your fine senior citizens who are fully capable of delivering excellence, because you get better with every year, baby. That's the plan. All right, so friends, it's been a lovely stream. Let us pause here for the evening. We're planning on another tremendous live stream tomorrow. So hopefully you come back and join us when we get into it. Should be a beautiful Tuesday. Looking forward to it. Mo, Grandma, heck, let the Dems anger all the seniors. The seniors are mostly their base. It's true. We love our seniors here. We love our seniors, definitely. And let me see, am I missing anything else? Former. I wonder what would happen if they attempted to apply the 54-year retirement mandate or the VA state legislature. I think, yeah. I mean, if they wanted to apply it to themselves, I think they could probably do that. Yeah. Jigam. Yeah, you were right, Rob, but isn't even a broken clock is right 2 times a day? It's true. That's true. Thank you, Jigam. John says, I was promised an extrovert lobotomy in DC. I'm still waiting for Elon to make that chip, and I got to put it in there. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. All right, so friends, we'll pause here for the evening. Yeah, Bonnie, there's Bonnie in her outfit, ziplining off of the, what was that? The Needle out there in Vegas? Amazing. All right, so friends, let's pause here. It's been a beautiful evening stream. Thank you for all the donos, for all the generosity, and for the great conversation and the fun. Thank you to our amazing mods and meme smiths who mod the fort down for us and keep things nice and orderly around here. Of course, Muffin Rando. We got Donut Mind Me. Shout out to our friend John in the house. We got Neuro D, Janek, and Dog Digger. We got K Bean and Carrie B, of course. Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and just Rhonda, keeping things nice and orderly around here. And thank you, my friends, for hitting the like button on the way out, subscribing if you haven't already done that, and returning tomorrow to join us as we get into it again, because in order to do this all appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very, very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. We brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are watching the watchers, shining the light. Watching the watchers, defending what's right. Watching the watchers, still